position. Well, the lightning didn't play, so that's thrown everything off. But I think we are now live.
I think we're live. No lightning is sad, but we will persevere. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and obliterators to that 6+++ show. I am your host, Tom, and we are the Wargaming team 6++, here to bring you some 40k goodness. We're going to be talking about LGT this week, London Grand Tournament. I'm sure you're aware what that is. Loads of us went. We had a grand old time. And we found the game in general in quite an interesting and happy and healthy spot. So I think there's lots of nice things to reflect on off the back of that. So to save time, because event roundups always take time, we'll launch straight into Pluse roundup once I've introduced just the names on the panel. And then we'll get into LGT. Then we'll talk about the state of the game and the meta overall, and we will report back on our various efforts at predictions, our 6++ accumulator, how that went, and we'll do some podcast questions at the end. Welcome everybody in the chat. Please do pipe up, throw questions in as we go along. So, on the show today, my dear leader Chris, as always. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm very well. I'm slightly less ill than
Oh, that's good.
So that's very good. Slightly stressed because, when you're away all weekend, you come back and suddenly everything's happening at work. So it's quite a full-on week. But
Yeah.
I'm going to come out the other side stronger, faster, with using my fate dice. And it'll be fun.
Yeah, that would be great for colds if you could just put a 6 save up.
Just put a 6 there.
Not deal with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm also joined by Ed. How are you doing, Ed?
Yeah, not bad, man. I'm pretty healthy. I've been off. I've been eating well. Relaxed. I've played some Warhammer today.
That's exciting.
Scratching my bollocks.
Nice.
Having a great time.
Excellent. And what sort of Warhammer are you playing at? Were you perchance using any new rules that might exist?
Yeah, I've been trying out the Space Marines because, LGT made me enjoy the game a bit more.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm
Positive signs. Positive signs. Don't call it a comeback.
I got smashed in my practice game, so I'm back to the drawing board. But it's fine. I've only wiped off half the chalk. We've got the skeleton intact. We can go from there.
Wonderful. I'm also joined by our Dark Prince, Lee Churchwood. How are you doing, Lee?
Very well, thank you. I am off the back of LGT. I've got over all those constant nightmares I've been having about my own personal mistakes.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else suffers from those, but
yes.
Flashbacks.
Yeah.
I'm over
Trauma.
Yeah,
trauma.
just
Absolutely.
general trauma.
I'm glad you're over it, and I'm excited to make you relive it. I think that's probably the healthiest way for you to move through it and past it. And I am also joined by our very own Jack Chapman. How are you doing, Jack?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Excellent. Wonderful. Cool. We won't natter too much about hobby because obviously we've not done any hobby because LGT was basically yesterday.
I did lots of hobby in 2 days.
I've got objections here. Okay, people have done hobby. No one was doing hobby before we went. Why are you
I sent
doing
you
hobby
pictures of the hobby.
Yeah, to be fair, you did. Okay, sorry, I've done you all wrong. But
It's because we've got actual proof that the game's less dog shit. So
I think that's what it is.
I'll have a bit of I'll play a game.
Maybe I'll make a model. Maybe I'll play a game.
Funny, that's almost the exact reaction I had. I painted one model and I was like, you know what? I think I'll paint one more. And then, it became a whole 2 model party.
Oh, that's lovely. Lovely. Just a few hundred more to go, right? Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the Pluse roundup. Chris is gonna take you through what's been happening, and then we'll get into our LGT spiel. Just gonna shout out some people in the chat. Connor Nichols is in the chat. Go away, Connor. I don't want to talk about you beating me in front of everyone. Boo! Existence UK is here. Kobe is here. Elmo Miniatures is slagging off Ed. Pickalax is here. Scrivo is chatting about Death Guard. Death Guard. Well, we'll come back to them, but wonderful faction, brilliant faction. Cool. Okay, Chris, take people through it. What's happening in the world of the Pluse roundup?
Oh, so much.
Much.
I mean, it's just taken me so long to scroll down all of the things that we've released in the last week. By that I mean Davey and Lewis just went live at 7:00 just now to speak about Lewis's LGT experience. And Davey last week told everyone about how Tyranids were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So if you like Tyranids, there are 2 shit hot videos for you.
There was State of Play too. We did Chaos Space Marines.
We spoke about that last week, Tom.
We were doing it. We didn't say that it's been done.
Really?
Yeah, pretty sure.
That long ago. Right, well, there's been
I might be wrong.
Space Marine State of Play.
I might be desperately trying to claim credit for something that I did 2 weeks ago,
which apparently happened well over a week ago. But
damn.
we'll let it slide. But excitingly, Tom did film a bite-sized bat rep.
I did.
Didn't you, Tom?
I did. We made one at LGT. We did a special LGT event report. I played against Paulie Wallace from Real Space Raiders, who you'll know as a Drukhari podcast that were very popular, very, very popular during lockdown and afterwards in the peak of 9th edition Drukhari, and are still an enduring force to this day. So that was a fun game. It was Drukhari versus Votan. The sound will be interesting because it was at LGT. There's a lot of people talking and people were interested. So all of our friends gathered around us and talked all the way through the game. But I think that aside, it's going to be a really fun and interesting bat rep. And it's certainly, it's a matchup. Neither of us really knew how it was going to go. And it was really interesting to see that. So thank you very much to Paulie for making that. Obviously, a bunch of us are going to be making event reports as well. And we've got a few other bits coming up. This Thursday, I'm going to have the first episode of Rock and Stone, recording with Jake Harding and James Marsden, which will be a Votan-specific show, which I'm super excited to make.
Coming soon. TM.
Yeah, exactly. Coming soon. It's been coming for a while. It's been so long in the works that Votan are actually half decent now, which wasn't even the point when I wanted to start making it. But here we are. That should be really fun. Great. Okay. Welcome, Jack. Welcome, Sindri. Nice to see you all here. So I think it's time. We're going to do a general LGT roundup. We're going to zoom in on 1 or 2 games. We don't want to take your entire evening, and we know that event reports can drag on a little bit, but we're going to talk a little bit about what we took, how we experienced it, 1 or 2 of our most interesting matchups, and then we'll move to talking about LGT more generally. So I wonder if perhaps we might start with you, Ed. Do you want to tell people what you took and how it went?
Yeah, I took a very cutty cooker.
It's easy for you to say.
Hold on, let me just reboot. Hi, yes, I'm here to talk about Warhammer. I took a very cookie cutter list, is what I was trying to say, which is, of course, 6 brigands, 3 carnivores, 1 stalker, and fuck, I resent taking that stalker, but you got to have a legal list because it's the only character.
Yep.
Then I took just some normal bits and pieces, great and clean one.
Yep.
Burning Chariot.
Standard.
Some Nurglings and a Beast of Nurgle.
Amazing.
Great times had by all. Yeah, that was the list.
Do you want to briefly explain the cunning in this? I know we've talked about it before, but just to reiterate, because it's not quite as random as meets the eye, right?
Yeah, so Chaos Knights have 2 good data sheets, and they have no army rules. So the data sheets that are good are brigands and carnivores, and we're in a more of a melee, a shooting meta than a melee meta. So I was like, right, I can take 6 brigands. How can I make 6 brigands more than 6 brigands? So I just put in a great and clean one, which when it comes down, pick a unit within 12 inches at the end of the shooting, the movement phase, and it makes a unit -1 toughness. I've got a lot of guns that are strength 12, 6, and 5. Weirdly, that lets a lot of common units fall prey to my breakpoints, like the big 20-man Crusader bricks that I was slaughtering by wounding on 2s with my gats.
That's amazing.
Great times. Big fan of that. And then the Burning Chariot, similar sort of premise there. I can shoot a unit and turn off cover for it. So again, that AP2 on the closest unit really rips through marine bodies, for example.
Absolutely.
So that was the plan. I think it worked out reasonably well. I didn't feel like the list underperformed against anything I'd expected to perform well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's right. And do you want to tell people about your run and then zoom in maybe on 1 or 2 of the games?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you started with me. So I haven't played any physical Warhammer in about 10 weeks. And you may not have picked this up from me, but I have a fairly high opinion of myself. And I was like, it'll be fine. I'll pick it up as I go along. I'm fucking incredible. My first round opponent was a really lovely chap, a guy called Ross Tully. He bigging up the Tully clan.
Yeah.
Had a great time with him, but I made all of the mistakes you'd expect someone to make, having not played in person in 10 weeks. Like, I made greedy decisions, and basically after I went first. I finished my turn 1 move phase. This is into World Eaters with Angron. As soon as I finished moving and I'd committed my models and I picked up the dice, and I was like, I've lost this game. So we'll not talk about that because I just made stupid decisions and I deserve to be punished for it. The saving grace is that Ross, not only was he lovely, and we had a really lovely time. And he was, just had a good bit of back and forth. He had won 3 RTTs coming into the LGT. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. So if I'm going to pick a game to just like massively misplay, at least it's someone who could have beaten me with a good list ahead of time. So I didn't feel too bad about that one, other than, I got what I
know
fucking
if he was
deserved.
genuinely better than you or not. That's good.
I know he deserved to play that, like win that game. He played it perfectly, and it would have been a struggle if I'd played it well, but it never even came down to that. So great win for Ross. So when you lose your first game at a tournament, it's a bit of a bummer, but you go, don't worry about it. You've got an easy game coming up. Someone has lost their first game. There's loads of people here. It's going to be a nice, easy one. So my reward for going 0-1 was to match up with Alex Petford. Alex Petford, you might recognize that name. You might have seen him in some pictures in Belgium recently, playing for a little team called Team England, WTC, international player. I've had the pleasure of playing with Alex. I've played against him before. Both times I've played him at tournament. He's had the hard counter, and he's also been playing one of the better armies in the meta, as you'd expect from someone, on Team England. So he's playing Meta Town, I was playing Chaos Knights, and they've got a lot of guns. So I found this one quite fun. I always enjoy playing Alex. We have a good time. It's a really relaxed game as well. He's just a lovely guy. Can't say enough nice things about him. So when he got first turn, I thought, great, I've got a little bit of play here. So he moved up. All my stuff was hidden behind walls. I was, really abusing the fact that I can walk through walls with my my strap. And he shot one model and just started ticking up the secondary points. Got a point and bring it down. Got a point, 3 points on teleport homers, the usual. And I said, cool, right, that's my movement phase done. I'm just going to sit here. And then I'm going to put all of my non-line of sight into your scoring units. And that was my first 3 turns, basically. And it was my turn 3. I was like, cool. Now I think if I come out, I might have a chance if he whiffs his shooting phase. So I tried to keep it as tight as possible. I had models alive at the end of the game, which was
good.
Yeah, in Chaos Knights into Tau, I was very happy about that. I did get a quizzical eyebrow from him as well when I got some nice primary on turn 2 when I rapid ingress my great and clean one. That was nice.
Yeah.
You're pulling all the tricks out the bag.
The master stroke. That's what it was all for.
Anyway, most of my stuff died by the end, and it was 95-70. But as a loss goes, I thought, yeah, you know what, that's fine.
Oh, it's a solid effort, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 games in, I've got the unenviable position of being 0-2 at the biggest event of the year.
That's a rough spot.
Yeah, I wasn't too pleased about it. I don't think I've ever lost my first 2 games at an event. I don't think that's ever happened, and it's you definitely, the doubt sets in. You're just like, am I bad at the game? Does having 10 weeks off make me a bad player? Understandably, the answer might be yes. So it was all right, though, because I thought, you know what? All I have to do is win an RTT. I can do that. Just got to win an RTT. There's no way I'm going to get another Team England player in the 0-2 bracket. Funnily enough, I didn't. Got a lovely guy called James, Black Templars. Only a second event. So I was like, cool, this is, put the stabilizers on, play the game out correctly, don't make any stupid mistakes, and just pick this one up and, reassess your life choices coming into day 2. And that was basically what I did.
Nice.
He had 2 bricks of the Crusaders, the Primaris Crusaders that are incredibly tough to kill. Both of them had a 5-up Feel No Pain. And I was very lucky that he gave me a turn to focus on each of them. Very kind of him. It just came down to tournament experience. So yeah, again, had a lovely time, but it was more of just a case of make sure you don't make the wrong decisions, pick them up with your efficient shooting and move from there. Then went home. No, didn't go home. We went to pub.
We did go to pub. Went to the Park, where there were frankly too many of us.
There were.
It was a great time.
Yeah, shout out to the staff there. The poor guy who was running all the food out was so done with just the quantity of people. I think we were relatively respectful as well, but it was just a case of
just a lot of people. About,
because it wasn't just us in that room. Was it Mind Goblins? They put in
Mind
that room
Goblins
as well?
were there as well, and
so we just had about 40 of us all having 27 different conversations.
Yeah,
but really just what you need to refuel. Coming into day 2, I had another Space Marines player. I was like, oh, this is what I need. This is where I want to be. I've drawn Space Marines. He was playing Gladius Detachment, Blood Ravens.
Blood Ravens.
Yeah, beautifully
Oh,
painted,
what a
really
sweetie.
nice. We had some guy I hadn't seen before. I think had literally come across to LGT from somewhere in Europe by the sound of the accent, having a great time, making the most of the experience, going around, and he just came over, started talking to us, and took some pictures of the models because they were that crisp.
Oh,
So
nice.
big shout out to Mark Beaumont. If you see this, your models are lovely.
Beautiful.
And that was another one where it was one of those where you see the deployment go down, you go, oh, cool, I just need to go through the motions, make the correct decisions, and
yes.
And did that and got a nice solid 90 to 55.
Very nice.
And then rounded out with a game against Tom Green.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah,
who had actually super chatted us, I believe, the week before.
Yes, he's a sweetheart. I love Tom Green.
He's absolutely lovely. It was a really great game for me, anyway, to round it out. We both had a great time, but we knew the matchup was basically I've got a lot of guns, you've got a lot of bodies, but I don't think enough bodies. So we, had a bit of chat at the start of the game, and he's like, "Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be over in 90 minutes. You can go home early. I can go drunk. It'll be fine." And despite that, obviously we played it out correctly. Turns out he had a lot of bodies, and there were some really sweaty moments in the middle. Not any sort of like conflict between the two, but I finished my shooting phase, and he still had 2 characters and a truck on a point that I had 2 brigands on, brigands being the shooting war dogs, and I'd finished my shooting. That was the point where I went, I'm not sure how many models I'll have here next turn. This is a concern, because I was blowing through his models, but he was blowing through mine as well. So that did end up going well for me. It was the only game of the event where I actually did get to use my faction rules. Nobody knows them. Chaos Knights, so they make you take battle shock tests if you're below starting strength and you're at -1 to them. And he had a 1 wound beast boss, I believe it was, on foot, who was about to absolutely just wreck my shit, just fully bend me over. And he failed his battle shock. I was like, I've got a stratagem. I roll 6 dice. For every dice that I roll, you take a mortal wound and I heal. And I swear to God, I rolled 6 4-ups, and my 7 wound brigand healed to full, and his model died. And that was the moment that maybe the light died in his eyes, because it was really starting to get sweaty at the end there. But no, really lovely guy. It's hard to place a favorite player across the weekend, but I think it might have had to have been Tom. He fucked with my head though. There was one model I couldn't kill at all, and the last unit in my army was shooting at it, and this was only like turn 2 or something, and there was 1 armor save to make. So he handed me his dice and said, "You roll it." I passed the fucking save.
Mind games from the Mind Goblins.
It really was, but it was an absolutely lovely guy. I can't look forward enough to playing him again, and next time I'll bring something with less guns, and we can have a nice proper melee off in the middle of the board.
Yeah, fantastic, cool. I mean, I think that's I say you had an unlucky start. Petford round 2 when you're already on a loss is pretty brutal, but then just knuckle down and go on with it. So very well done.
I think I had the start I deserved for the amount of prep that I put in. I don't feel like I've been hard done by. You expect at least 1 hard game through an event.
Yeah.
I misplayed 1, deserved to lose it. Then I got my hard game. Then I got 3 games that, the 3 games that you normally just cruise through at an event. Well, 2.5 because the last one was a bit of a knuckle biter. But so I think it was exactly what I deserved for the amount of prep I put in.
Very nice. And how? I mean, you've alluded to it already, but you seem a little more positive about 10th edition, having played the LGT. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, I didn't play any Eldar, so weirdly, I actually think my list is quite well suited to dealing with Eldar because I've got a lot of non-line of sight shooting.
Yeah, that will blink away.
Like, you look at it on the just as the data sheets, and you're like, well, that seems fine, but you probably kill 10, 12 bodies, Eldar bodies, from behind terrain. And if you get the second roll off, if you don't have to move out to get the primary, you can kill most of their scoring stuff before they get to play the game. And suddenly, that's a game.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what the problem is, Ed, though? Is that they have probably 3 night spinners, and then they just roll a bunch of 6s and take you and just kill your knights, right?
They'll try.
That's vanishingly unlikely. So look,
I've had a Riptide die from full to a Night Spinner. It can happen to me. It can happen to you.
Behind the curtain. I knew what the Night Spinner profile was before we got all the leaks. Someone had passed that on behind the scenes, and I was like, this is going to be the OP shit. Full rerolls to wound. It's dev wounds. It's 2 damage, and then. I sat and rolled it out. I was like, okay, it's not actually as much damage as I thought it was, but it's still going to be disgusting. And then I was massively wrong, and people didn't take them for damage at all, and it was the Wraith Knights. So it's just what I know. But
I
anyway,
think people lean on them now, but it's definitely I do think Eldar is an interesting game for you because you have one of the battle shock things actually relevant in that game too, right? Because if Wraithguard fail battle shock in the middle of the board, they're quite unhappy because they can't get away.
What that turns into is basically any competent opponent just goes, oh, I pay a 1 CP tax once per game, and battle shock doesn't come up.
Yeah. But if they're spending it on that, can they spend it on Phantasm as well? There's a CP management question that comes up too. I think it's interesting. I'd like to see it played.
Yeah. I'd be interested to play against Eldar with it, but I don't want to play Eldar, and I think I've had enough of Chaos Knights, so we'll leave that one to the ether.
Excellent. Well, you're a Space Marine main. You always were, so I think that'll be fun.
I'll get bored within 2 weeks, and then I'll find some real jank, and then we'll be back.
Sick. Very nice. Right. All right. Let's move things along. Let's go to a Tau kind of place. Let's check in with you, Jack. Set the scene for us. What did you take? What was your run? A couple of games that interested you?
So my list was roughly 2 Hammerheads, 2 Riptides, a Devilfish full of breaches and a Fireblade. He had Unity and Devastation, but I never used it pretty much. It almost never came up. It's not secret tech. Then had a Cold Star with 6 Crisis, as you would expect. The special thing there was 2 Plasma, 1 Cyclic, instead of all Cyclic.
You've been a Plasma advocate from day one, haven't you?
I have indeed, and I still stand by it. It's good in most situations, but not every situation. It's like 10% worse, 15% worse, I think, overall, but you just don't kill yourself. So.
And that's a positive.
Yeah, it's always a positive. So I've got 3 broadsides, a ghost kill, a pair of piranhas, a pair of stealth suits, and I think that's basically it.
Sweet.
So I will be continuing to make a video this week for something. I don't know where it's going. It may be somewhere, but I'm doing battle report videos for these, so I'm not going to cover every single game.
No, absolutely. Hold some good stuff back. That's the
idea. I don't want to spoil it. So I'm just going to talk about 2 of my games. The first one was my 3rd game against Ethan, playing Black Templars. So at this point, I was 2-0, having just played against my first ever Black Templars player and winning that game. And I had to play against another Black Templars player. But Ethan had a very different list. His list was about 6 units of 10 Crusaders, 2 units of 20 Primaris Crusaders with like Helbrecht and Grimaldus in.
Oh,
to give him 5+ feel no pains.
Helbrecht as well. That's bowling.
Another 10 man Primaris, just I assume for objective holding, and then 6 aggressors with a I don't know the biologist.
Yeah, they call him the Harmacist now.
Harmacist, there we go. Yeah. He was in there as well. All of these units, so it was 110 infantry units and some aggressors. All of the infantry units had a las cannon and a grav gun. Now, grav guns are not fun. I'll be honest.
No,
they're quite annoying. But essentially, he went fixed against me, as many people did. Fixed ended up being quite a story of the event, I think. We'll probably touch on that later.
Yeah, for sure.
He went Bring It Down, 320 against Tau, and he went Cleanse. And this was a 6th objective mission. There were 4 in the midfield. So he kind of just moved forward and cleansed objectives every turn and shot a few bits with las cannons and sort of slowly whittled me down until he got to 20. Bring it down, because it is free realistically against Tau. You can get about 10 points without even trying, and then the other 10 is just kill something. You just do it naturally. So he ended up getting the 100 points against me. But what was really interesting about this game is, so I went tactical objectives because I didn't see any easy points to score. on fixed. I ended up getting 14 points on secondaries because I drew really bad cards. But I went back and I thought about it. Even though I draw really bad cards, if I'd gone fixed, I don't think I could have stopped him from scoring 100. So it would have been a completely moot point anyway.
Yeah.
Because of the setup of the terrain, he could pop units out because he had 11, 12 units of infantry. And the crisis unit can kill a 20-man in a round. But they only have so many turns to do that.
They do.
And especially if you deep strike them, you can only kill 4 of those, right? And then there's only so much time in the game.
Yeah.
So I've run that game back a few times in my head, and I just don't know what I could have done to prevent him getting a cleanses on those turns, apart from playing like ludicrously aggressive, which I don't know. I don't think I would have tried against Black Templars.
Well, that's the thing. It feels a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because you're like, well, surely they're going to hit me in the mouth if I do that.
Exactly. They have like 100 strength 4 if you want attacks per unit. So,
do.
That'll take down a Riptide eventually. So, that was a really interesting game. I think Black Templars are kind of made a big name for themselves.
Yeah, this was their announcement weekend, wasn't it? They came out swinging, as we will talk about a bit later.
I really wasn't prepared for it at all. So it was really interesting to play against it, and definitely gave me a lot more to think about going forward. And then, so I ended that day 2-1. Next morning, I played against Oliver, who
my mate Ollie. Yeah.
Yes. So Ollie was playing Dark Angels, Gladius Task Force. It was like a mixed arm list. He had a big 10-man of Dark Angels Command Squad guys, Terminators, and then a 10-man Deathwing Knight Squad.
Yep.
So I trying to remember what Dark Angels' names are. It was a pretty fun thematic list, but it's kind of exactly what Tau want to play into. So the reason I wanted to bring this game up is because of what Ollie was telling me about after the game. So his game plan was to try and rush me turns 1 and 2. So we ran all this stuff across the board quite quickly. In this game I went fixed. I've been burned by tactical last round, so I decided I was going to go cleanse and teleport homers. He decided to rush me. He went straight in for a big advance and charge on turn 1 into the Piranha squad thing I had in the middle, doing the cleanse. She killed, and then my turn 2, because I went first. So I brought in the Crisis, the Broadsides, 2 Hammerheads, 2 Riptides, the Breaches, all of it into the Deathwing Knight squad in the middle. And I almost killed all of it. I left it with a chaplain on 1 wound.
Nice.
But it took literally my entire army shooting at it to do so. At that point, the list is. I also blew up a tank with something. But essentially, at that point, his list's back was broken. He attempted a very long. I think it was like a 21-inch charge with Terminators. He got a 6 in his advance on Assault Doctrine and failed a 5 rerollable, unfortunately, to make the charge. So in the end, unfortunately, the Tau did pick up most of the Terminators, and he was left with nothing left at the top of turn 5.
Ouch.
The reason I wanted to talk about this one was he was telling me that he was talking to like other people. He's like, well, how do I play against Tau? And people were telling him, you need to rush Tau 1 and 2, right? You need to get them, beat them before they get the sustained hits from Callion. And I just want to say a big thank you to all the Tau players out there that keep telling people to do this, because it has won me so many games. Because when you think about it, telling people to run across the middle of the board in the open into the Tau as quickly as possible and not stick to cover, when you say it like that, as Ollie said, it doesn't actually make a lot of sense. So
are you suggesting this is Tau propaganda, Jack?
It's Watercast propaganda. Like it makes lots of sense when the nice Tau man with the big hat says to do it, but when you actually do it in game, it doesn't work out so well. I think as a general rule, me personally, I think as a Tau player, I guess you got to bias again. The better thing to do is to play a little bit more defensively, and then wait for the Tau to expose themselves and pounce on them. Particularly on the UKTC boards, it's quite hard to get lines of sight with a lot of stuff.
Sure.
You can get like a couple of crisis units in line of sight, but getting like a whole army in line of sight to have to have one unit shoot in the other spot and then another unit shoot in the unit spot, like getting all of that in can be quite difficult.
Oh yeah.
So I think just waiting for the tower to move forward and overextend in order to, and then you can counterpunch is a bit of a better play
for sure.
But I think I kind of put a bit of pressure on Ollie by going fixed, because by going cleanse and teleport homers, both are very easy missions on the UKTC boards, which again is another big story of the event.
Absolutely.
I was getting 7 secondary points every turn.
Yeah.
Like the first 2 turns, he was just like, I can't. He was getting tacticals, and he got 2 points in the first turn, and like 7 or 8 on the second turn. He's like, I'm just going to lose this game on secondaries. It was almost like a creeping panic that's coming in, like forcing him to do something, which in the end kind of ended up being his downfall. So I think that's the story of the game pretty much. I think a lot of people, when they're playing into Tau, they play very aggressively to try and get rid of them early, when I think playing more patient and letting the Tau overextend is probably a better. Shouldn't be telling anyone this. This is really stupid for my win rate, but I'd say that's just the most interesting thing that happened in the game. And then I played another game, but we'll talk about all the other games that I played in the video that I'm working on.
That's great. I look forward to hearing that. Obviously, it's an interesting time to be a Tau player. Things definitely looking up, so I look forward to hearing your take on it, as I'm sure many people are. Okay, let's move things along. Let's take things to a chaotic place. Lee,
hello.
Tell everyone about your weekend, which was quite an eventful one. You certainly had an eventful run.
I did, yeah. It was, so we'll kick off with game one. We're going to name check some people here. So I had the lovely Henrik Ridderheim, one of my first Tau opponents. Again, beautiful army, really well painted, so a nice pleasure to play against him. Again, quite defensive in his kind of deployment, which allowed me to use my general tactic for the whole weekend, which is drive a Rhino to the middle, jump a few chosen units out, and charge.
Fucking send it.
It's a great plan. It's Drakari, mate. It's 9th edition Drakari, but with power armor. It's great.
That's exactly it.
The opposite of what I said, so I'm stupid. Ignore me. The last 10 minutes, ignore that. Listen to Lee. He knows what he's talking about.
Look, it depends on what you've got and how you use it, I think.
So after staging turn 1 in the centre with the Rhino and pushing a few units of like Warp Talons around the board and moving some Forge Fiends into positions, my second turn ended up with my chosen on his back objective, demon hammering away at Tetras and Stealth Suits and Piranhas. And again, that basically caused a problem that poor old Henrik couldn't get around. He spent the rest of his game trying to dislodge chosen from his backfield rather than actually...
I've lived that life. It's a sad life.
Scoring anything else. And that kind of really played out as the way you think it would. Is kind of he kind of couldn't really get out of that pocket. Everything was, all the crisis suits were trying to kill chosen in his backfield, and then everything else on my army popped up and killed his. So Henrik, lovely guy, again possibly a little bit defensive in his setup, which allowed me to get right stuck into him.
Yeah.
Game 2 against the wonderfully named Felix Patch.
Oh, what a name! What a name! That's a great D&D name. I would definitely. I'd have a bard called Felix Patch.
He looked a little bit like a bard. He had a lovely beard,
as he must, because he's got a wonderful name like that. Can't waste it.
And a lute. He didn't have a lute. He travelled all the way up from Exeter by himself because his mates ditched him at the last minute. So, he was playing Votan. A Votan main like yourself.
A Votan main, yeah, there are many of us.
And I'd had a wonderful practice game against yourself. So I was very confident into my kind of army versus
you had
Votan.
every right to be,
because what they do is they fill all these lovely little vehicles with squishy little dwarves, and they drive them like little ice cream vans at you, and then you get to pop them open and
eat everyone inside. Yeah.
And that's so again I went with bring it down and deploy teleport homers, which is my general thing pretty much for the whole event.
Did you run fixed for the whole event, Lee?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, all the way through.
That's cool. Yeah.
6 Sagittars. He had 2 blobs of like the little Terminator dwarfs. All the Sagittars.
This is very much the way Votan is shaping. I think that's the consensus. Is that that's the best way to play it with 6 Sagittars and some Hearthguard. Yeah.
I think I preferred the fortresses, to be honest. I found them a bit tougher.
I am a thought leader and a visionary. You're absolutely right.
So this one played out very similar to what we kind of done before. That turn 2, I was in position.
Mm-hmm.
He drove his ice cream vans up the board, and my obliterators cracked them open, and the chosen that are standing 2 inches away then
eat them,
charge what's inside and kill it.
Yeah.
The Terminators, they came in kind of off the sides, and then they felt some Forge Fiends and disappeared. But again, it was a good game. 89-50 in the end. Again, secondary points. You couldn't get a big bring it down score. But 89 points is 89 points, which moved me swiftly onto my game 3 against an equally lovely chap, Alex Neal. I got to the table. I looked at my phone. I'm like, hang on, game 3, I'm undefeated. What the fuck am I playing Death Guard for?
Damn right. Tell him. Shit for me.
And again, this guy had spent a lot of time painting this army. It was absolutely beautiful. You had a Land Raider with the mouth, with like the tendrils and all those lovely things. A beautifully painted Mortarion. Lots of Death Shroud Terminators, Typhus, a couple of cheeky little Poxwalker units holding down objectives. And he thrust it all into the middle of the board and basically went, what are you going to do about this? And I shot it all up.
Has it got that off?
Fucking took him off, mate.
Yeah.
Pick up your model, son.
6 Terminators with Typhus die to a 1 Forge Fiend shooting at them.
Yeah.
The Obliterators
That's a sad time.
can easily pop a Land Raider in one attempt. And then the Plague Marines that are inside it get shot by the other Forge Fiends and all die. The brave Chosen that were running around the board survived 2 turns of Mortarion as well. So for him to get through to the Lord and then eventually kill the Lord. And it was a case of a very good push. It scored him quite a few points getting to the middle, but he couldn't survive long enough against the full firepower of the Obliterators and Forge Fiends, and then the rest of my army popping up in his backfield, taking the same objective.
Yeah.
So decent score there, 96-66. Again,
very nice.
Absolute gent, Alex, and a lovely game as well. On to round 4, so I am 3-0.
So it feels like, Lee, you've had 3, reasonably comfortable games.
Yeah.
So did that continue? Did it continue to be a nice, easy ride up into the top levels at this stage?
No, it didn't. my lovely tactics of choosing my fixed secondaries, my staging, and then charging came up against a good player called Dino. I'm probably pronouncing this terribly. Was it Co?
I think so. I'm not sure. But it's Dino.
I think I'm also saying that is he the WTC captain of the Netherlands?
He definitely has been at times, yes, and he's very much in the mix with that all the time. So he's a constant, a fixture for Team Netherlands. Yeah.
So I had to turn my brain up to 11, which is where the strain on my brain gets kind of critical. And I played a brilliant game with him. It was really good fun, very technical, lots of great conversations about who like angles and what our intent is, and it was very well thought out. He had a very meta tau list, but he had a slight twist of 2 devilfish filled with breaches, still loads of those bloody tetras everywhere, the 3 crisis blobs, all with their cyclic ions, and people were telling me that these things die to their own shooting. No, they don't. He killed
not if they slow roll them.
No. And the guy Henrik before that playing Tau, he didn't. None of his died to their own shooting. I think it's a hoax.
I need their dice because I killed 2 of my own crisis suits with 7 hazardous tests in my last game.
Wasn't happening. So I did the usual. The Rhino goes out. It stages. He plays cagily. He said at the end of the game that he was possibly too defensive because he pushed all of his suits backwards to make sure they were out of the range from where he'd screened out, which was, in my opinion, probably the right thing to do, even though it meant that he had to push more in the later turns. He did put a Devilfish on an objective, which I was quite happy to drop some Obliterators in and pick up and then charge in the Chosen to take the contents. Again, putting him down to a 5 on primary in that second turn, which was a good start.
Yeah.
And again, it was back and forth. He was picking up my units, I was picking up his. We were both running out towards the end of the game. My Obliterators, I have to say, units of 4 Obliterators, although they did a little bit of work, they were swingy as hell. And some turns they did absolutely nothing. And some turns they were ridiculous. But that is possibly one thing I will think about in the future of my list, about whether they are actually worth it. It's a huge point sink for something that doesn't always deliver.
It's interesting.
And in this game, I fired into 6 crisis suits indirect with full rerolls to hit and wound with a unit of 4, and picked one crisis suit up. But later in the game, 3 of my Obliterators came around the corner and picked up a whole unit of 6, including their commander.
Wow.
And it's kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. Jack?
Were you using the unit with like the full rerolls to hit and wound? Or
Yes.
was it the Nurgle unit?
It was the full rerolls to hit and wound.
Okay. I was just curious if it was like, is it because you're shooting as like 4-up invols, or is it just because they're hitting on, they're just swinging because of their hit rolls and wound rolls?
It's the swingy, the indirect's more swingy because obviously you're hitting on 4s. And then because most armies these days have got really good defensive abilities, plus you're getting everything gets cover. So even AP3 is not as impactful as it possibly should be. And again, it swings on the roll of the D3. So you've got 4 D3, and if you roll all 1s, you're not getting a lot. And if you don't get any explosions from the 6s, you're not getting a lot. And again, when it comes to 4-up invuns or any unit with an invun, they only have to make a few, and your kind of high output shooting just turns into nothing.
In that sense, it feels like Obliterators are still kind of what they've always been, which is this slight like death lottery, right? Where you're like, there is a potential here that I can kill basically anything that exists, but equally I might not do anything.
Yeah. And again, it was tit for tat. He was playing the cards, and the cards were going extremely well for him. And it came down to the last turn, where I probably, hindsight's 2020. I could have sent some Warp Talons to deploy Teleport Homers in his backfield and get 4 points, or use my Nurglings to get 3. I used the Nurglings. And I used the Warp Talons to try to wrap up a Devilfish to give him his disembarking unit a very long advance to get onto an objective to take it off.
Right, I see.
He made the advance on a 5, I think, to get his unit onto the objective. He drew 2 wonderful cards where he could easily score 10 points in the last turn, which gave him that 1 point advantage, and he won 91 to my 90. My brain was frazzled.
Yeah, I bet.
I shook his hand, took it like a champ, and was on 3-1. But it was a great game. It was a great game.
I know that's an international standard game, right? And you've basically been Valley for the win, and it's come down to the cards. That's an amazing performance, I think.
This is where kind of my tournament took a U-turn, because I was frazzled. My brain was done.
Those tough ones on Sunday morning. I have this as well, where it's just like if you have a really strong opponent Sunday morning, it's very hard to rally and sort of recombobulate yourself for the final game.
And as a bit of a sports person out of 40k, I normally have a week to decompress when I do something and I lose. And now I've got 55 minutes before my next game comes in, and I am still hating myself in that. I come up to the table. I think we've got our new recruit Joe next to me playing his Custodes, and he's like, "You're right," as I'm throwing all my models on the floor. I'm like, Yeah, I'll be all right. And then my chest clock's batteries run out, and I'm scrambling. I can't find the batteries. It's all going wrong. And I get to the table, and I'm playing Maxim. I'm going to butcher this guy's name as well. He's flown all the way over from Poland. Prudzinski.
Okay.
He's playing Black Templar, and again, I've not prepped into Black Templar.
Oh, yes.
It's
a running theme across many of our games this weekend.
I just play terribly. I honestly have put my hand up, and this one is the one I've been having kind of flashbacks from.
Yeah.
And I play like an absolute novice who's never played Warhammer before. I put all of my things that are my kind of mantras of what to do in the bin, and I play fully by emotion and want to kill him. Everything really quickly, full aggression.
It's very chaos.
It weirdly doesn't pan out well for me. I'm forgetting rules hand over fist. I'm like, he had to call me on my what do you call them, the dark packs, because I kept on forgetting to do them because I was just playing out of emotion and not doing them. So I had to roll lots of those at the end of the game, and I think I'm just like, I'm going to beat him. Black Templars, what the fuck are
they? I've been there, buddy. I've been there.
Yeah.
I'm killing all his stuff,
pretty easy.
And he's running out of things. Bring It Down I've taken again, and he's got Redemptors in the backfield. And he very, very cleverly, he's a good player. He pushes all his vehicles to the very back corner and says, okay, Obliterators that drop down the middle. You're out of range now. It's going to take you a few turns to get back there to do anything. I'm scoring well on deploy teleport homers. But again, rookie error number 1. I shoot his Terminators. And I've not sequenced my shooting correctly.
Yeah.
So instead of getting to shoot them with 2 Forge Fiends and pretty much get rid of them, I shoot them with 1. He moves 6 inches closer.
Yes, he
does.
He
can charge a Forge Fiend from I think it was a 10-inch or a 9-inch rerollable, which he does get turn 1, putting lots of pressure on me.
Yes.
And then everything starts going quite well. I've started to kill all his rhinos, all the multiple units that are coming out everywhere are getting picked up by Chosen. The Terminators are getting held by a Chaos Lord in Chosen in my backfield as well, and they're actually winning the fight there as well, which is pretty good. I'm pretty confident. I'm looking at the scores. I'm going, right, I've got this. This is a win. Brilliant. I've done it. I've got 10 points on him. End turn. There's no way. I've pinned him in his back corner. He's not winning this. But I've been a knob and I've not looked at my cards. I've not looked at what his possible secondaries that can come up are on the last turn. I've left a backfield objective stickied. And what does he do? He picks up Storm Hostile Objective, and what's the other one about getting Capture an Enemy Outpost? Calidus, Lop, on my backfield objective. There's the 10 points we need. It's a draw. It's 85-85. And I'm like, you are an idiot. This is a game that you should have won, but because I didn't follow my basic principles of what you do each turn and what you do when you arrive to game, I kicked myself in the head, and it is over. And I've gone 3-1-1.
Okay.
But I think it's a lesson, and what I've come away from that is, and I've done it twice now because I did it against Julio in Nottingham in last season, and I went 3-1-1. And it is, I need to decompress. I need to have a word with myself. I need to kind of take some deep breaths, go and do some push-ups or whatever you're going to do between a game. And what I've made myself is a little checklist from now on that I'm taking laminated to every single tournament.
The least chaotic thing.
It is very, that's my ADHD, so it's going to help me focus.
Yeah.
It's got a breakdown of the things that I need to do at the start of each of my turns, and it is, what objectives can my opponent draw? Check them. It's about following the basic principles of how am I going to score my points? What can I do to deny his points? All the really basic stuff that I didn't do in the last game because I thought I was just going to bully him. And I should be better than that, and I wasn't. And to be quite honest, Maxim deserved that draw, if not a win, because he played it really, really well. And I just went in there thinking, Black Templars, Marine bodies, I'm going to walk this. And I deserved a reality check, and that's exactly what I got.
No. Well, I think that's all very healthy perspective. We're certainly very, very impressed nonetheless. And I think that last game is very understandable, having had a game as draining as the one that you had in the first round. I think a lot of us would very much be in that position. So I think, having processes and some guides to help you make those decisions, especially late on in an event when you're tired, seems eminently sensible to me. So I'm sure that will help in the future. And I mean, running Netherlands captain to a point, still pretty epic in my book. I think that's one of the best stories of the weekend. Yeah, 100%. Right. We're saving Chris, which means I'm going to go now. I am a Votann main, so I took Leeds of Votann. And I had contrasting experiences warming up for this event. I'd been to an RTT where I had won the RTT, which was really nice, but I'd had probably kind of matchups for that. And I'd had a practice game with Lee in which Lee had wiped the floor with me and put me in a headlock. So I was like, okay, different ways this could go. So it was all going to depend a little bit on what I bumped into. So the first round I played against Crichton, I think was the name. Really lovely man who attends some of Lewis's events. And he ran Necrons. And I got a little bit of luck in this because he went first and he lined up some shots on my Sagittars. And I think there's a world in which he pops both Sagittars turn one. And then I'm in some serious issues. I've got Sagittars land forts, lots of different things with Hearthguard dropping in. That's the way the list functions. But he doesn't quite do it. He rolls really poorly on some of his random shotguns in the early stages of the game, which is massive. And I think in general, Votann are quite good at killing Necrons and chewing through Necron bricks. They've got a lot of the right tools for that. So in the end, I was able to outmuscle him in that game. But it was a really lovely game, and he was a really, really solid player. And it was fun watching the Silent King back around, just absolutely cutting through swathes of stuff in the middle of the board as well. So that was really cool. And then my round 2, I hit a very tough game, which was, again, and there's a running theme here, Black Templars. And Black Templars, piloted by Connor Nichols, who's actually someone who watches the show and supports the show. So thank you very much for that, Connor. And it was a real treat to play you. And Connor was a really, really good player. And this was one of those games where you just saw someone else's understanding of the matchup and also the ways in which two armies can sometimes just present you with real challenges in the game. I think the key thing with Black Templars right now is that they can have a Feel No Pain. They can have a 6-up Feel No Pain everywhere. And they can have a 5-up Feel No Pain in a couple of places. For Votann specifically, who can chew through marine bodies, but do it slowly because it's a lot of AP 1 and 2. So you're just trying to get those 4 saves failed, those 5 saves failed using ignore cover, etc., etc. That, with damage 2, takes twice as long when they start making 6-up and 5-up Feel No Pain. So all the output that Votann rely on is being chopped into tiny pieces. So it's something Templars have innately, is really good against Votann output. The other thing Connor had in this list that was wonderful was triple Redemptors, because they're -1 damage on top. So then you're like, oh, sometimes nothing's happening. And it's got a 2-up save, an Armor of Contempt, which again, Armor of Contempt 2-up save, if you want to beat Votann, just pack a bunch of that in, because that is extremely good at blunting what they do. They are very dependent on AP 1 and 2. They don't have many good high AP guns in that index, particularly. The Magna Rail is rubbish, and the plasma on the Hearthguard is usually 10 shots. So 10 shots cannot do a whole job all the way across the game. So that in the design of the list, Black Templars had a few things that presented me with some real problems, as well as some big bricks. Right, and we were playing on Purge the Foe, the mission where it's kill more, hold more. And looking at it, I was like, well, I am going to be struggling for kill more, because I've got these little idiots that I like to chuck out, my little 5-man squads at Hearthkin, and their whole job is to go and get killed to get me judgment tokens so that I can get better at killing the enemy. But in this, they're getting killed and giving my opponent primary, which is a slightly sad situation. So I definitely need to work out how to approach that particular mission with Votann and slightly flip things around a bit, maybe keep them back and not avoid losing Hearthkin for no reason. But the contrast with this was the way that Connor played his list. So what Connor did was he basically kept the Redemptors completely hidden for the first 2 or 3 turns. Didn't really use them, like angle sniped a little bit if he got an opportunity, but pretty much kept them hidden in his backfield. And he used a Crusader brick down one side and then his Terminators down the centre to pressure. I had marked a couple of the little Crusader squads, because if I kill those early, I get a bunch of CP. And he didn't use them. Literally held them back. Was very, very canny, clearly understood what was going on, knew that if he threw those away early, I'd get CP. So I didn't get additional CP until the mid-game, which meant it was much harder when he came in aggressively with the 2 bricks for me to start pulling all the different things I needed to actually deal with them and push them back. I killed the Crusader brick fairly happily, but we hit a point in the mid-game where any chance I had of killing the Terminator brick basically went. And I had some luck because Connor used a very cool stratagem that Black Templars have, where if a unit's in combat with a bunch of stuff, I need to roll 4-ups to fall back, which is incredibly peaky. But as I said to him, I've played Witch Cult for many years, and it never works. And indeed, a whole bunch of stuff. He'd tagged like 2 or 3 units. They all got out scot-free and ran away, and it was absolutely fine. The actual combat slap of the Templars was not as strong as I was expecting, I have to say. I think where it's a bit like Marines in general, where they have oaths, they were very good, but actually they weren't that dangerous in some of the other points in the board. But what Connor was doing really well was keeping his assets, and Black Templars have a lot of little baby Crusader squads who are dirt cheap now, absolutely dirt cheap, who come waltzing out and do the jobs and put lots of OC on the points. So Connor was using his resources really well. I'd had to play quite aggressively to try and clear the bricks that were ahead of me. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I needed to hang back and be patient. I'm still not entirely sure. But anyway, in terms of the cards, I think Connor was slightly getting ahead on the cards. I hadn't had the best cards in the early stages. But what this came down to is it hit a point in 4 or 5 where just the Redemptors come out. It's Redemptor time. It's time for them to walk forwards. And at this point, they've not been judged because they haven't come forward, not done much killing. They haven't got sufficient tokens on for me to have +1 to wound, crucially. And they are 2-up save, -1 damage. And what is left of a Votan army at this point cannot pick them up. I think I kill 1, but there's still 2 standing at the end. And that is enough, because I'm on end of turn, that is enough to ensure that I'm still not able to get, the hold more and get a few extra bits at the end, which just about, I think Connor wins by 6 points, maybe 7 points. It's a decent win, but it's very nicely played and very nicely controlled. And I just felt it was a list that gave me no end of problems, and in which I think Connor managed all of the assets to make the problems as pronounced as possible really, really well. Because I played a Marine player at the RTT before I came to the event who threw all 3 of his Redemptors at me turn 1, because that's how he normally plays them. And I was like, oh, great, because if I don't shoot whole army at these, I'm never going to kill him. So I'm glad that you've given me the chance to do this right now. Whereas leaving them to the end game was really, really good and really effective. So Connor was an absolute gent to play. It was a really lovely, funny, silly game. And I was saying to him in the middle, I was like, I just don't understand what's going on. Like, this matchup's still like, I've got no idea how this is going to go. And we were both finding out. And it was cool seeing Black Templars out and about. And I think they are really good and really strong at what they do right now. A real play in there. And he had some of these were lovely models as well from, like, I think his dad had given him some of these. So it was very nice seeing these really old little, there were some brand new big Primaris ones with really little tiny old Black Templar dudes all wandering around together. So that was really cute. And then, so that was a lost round 2, which meant I then had to knuckle down if I was gonna keep doing well. So I hit, what did I hit round 3? Jamie East was on Sunday. Oh, I played Ace. That was it. So I drew into Ace from Twisted Dice. And Ace is a lovely man, very good player, long-time player, content creator, huge Tyrannid fan, right? He absolutely adores his Tyrannid. He's got these beautifully painted Tyrannids. Ace has had a bunch of stuff going on in his life, so he's not been able to play as much lately. And we had, again, a really funny, really silly game, a lot of joking, a lot of swearing. It was excellent. But basically, I knew more about how Votan into Tyrannids would go than Ace did. And it goes Hearthguard, shoot a lot, and Tyranids die, and then the Tyranids shoot the Hearthguard back. They don't do as much, and then the Hearthguard kill the Tyranids, and that's kind of how this went. So that was a relatively routine win, although I did find out what you need to kill Norm emissaries, and it is a lot. And then on the Sunday morning, I played Jamie East, our very own Jamie East, in a Pluse off, and I was actually very worried about this because he was running Death Guard, which, as we all know, are one of the better armies in the game. A strong, powerful.
I would certainly encourage to be thinking of them as more like a 3-2-4-1 army.
Yeah, 3-2-4-1. I think I agree.
I think you lack understanding of how the game is played, and it's not my fault that you have small brains.
He does play Eldar. He doesn't have to learn.
Sorry, Chris. It's the first time you've opened your mouth in about an hour.
Yeah. He's been so patient. He's been so patient. Don't slap him down. Anyway, Jamie is a tenacious foe and an aggressive opponent normally, it has to be said. That's what I know of Jamie. I've never played him before, but I've heard stories, and I know he likes to come forwards and get stuck in. And he had a list with lots and lots of vehicles, and basically in this game, I think first turn was huge because neither of us could quite hide everything we wanted. One of us was always going to get some shots into the other one first, and in this instance, I got the luck of it, and I went first. We played it. It was still really close and violent. I'd killed like 500 points of stuff in the first battle round. and it was still brutally close and took a long time and a lot of scrapping. And James' decision making was really good, and he played it really well, and it was an extremely fun game. And the highlight for me was the hammer champion killing Mortarion. Get in the bin, Mortarion. Die. I've got a big smacky hammer, and I'm gonna. It's like I imagine you hitting it like a sort of doctor's like checkup on the knee. I think that's about as far as he'd be able to reach. But yeah, very good game, and that was another win as well. And then the final game, this was the spicy one, was that I was drawn into Eldar at the end. And this was round 5. It was into Brendan, who was a lovely man, very good player, who had beaten, I think, Rafa Harbinson earlier on in the event. I was looking through his results, so he was a very strong player. And I think what Brendan had done was go for sheer strength of scoring and then ranged control over some of the flashier and jankier tricks that Eldar have. So you didn't have an Incarn in here, you didn't have an Avatar, and I think I was relieved for that because those are both nightmares in their own way. But what you had instead was just tons of stuff, like triple warp spiders, double sweeping hawks, triple shadow specters, triple war walkers, double fire prism, night spinners. So it's a lot, right? It's a lot of stuff, and it fills up the board. And in this one, basically, I'd played against Chris. I played Votan Eldar before, and I've seen kind of how it goes. And it's one where you have to make lots of trouble in lots of places to stop them from just kind of playing around you and doing whatever they want. So the more trouble you can create, the better. So I got first turn, which I think was pretty essential. Pushed land fortresses up, put lots of OC on all 3 objectives in the middle, and said, deal with it, because then I'm going to attack you with deep strikers and other things next turn. And in Brendan's turn 1, he pops out a Viper and some War Walkers on one side and Fire Prisms to line up the fort in the middle. And he sends stuff down to clear what he's aiming to be his objective down at the bottom of the board. And he pretty much leaves my one on the far side. And he does a very nice job of clearing bits and bobs down in the bottom corner and putting out a nice screen with a fire and fade and other things to make sure I can't drop in and push up from there. And he's committed a bunch of guns to line up this land fort, and he literally kills it in 3 shots. The Viper hits it, wounds it, I fail the save, he 8 damages it, at which point the land fort has no cover, at which point a War Walker shoots it, hits it, wounds it twice, I fail both saves, and the fort is dead. It's literally 3 Bright Lances. And I have to say that the Viper tech actually, for land raiders and land forts and those kinds of things, I think very, very good to have. If you are doing the more shooty, long-range Eldar builds, I think the Viper was essential for that, actually, and worked a treat. I have looked at Vipers in lists and been like, what's that about? It's got 1 lance, but now I understand its function and its purpose. And at that point, I think Brendan's feeling quite sorry for me, because I think I'm feeling quite sorry for me as well, because I'm like, well, this doesn't look very good. But he's also had cards where he's had to send 1 Walk Spider squad to the middle, and he's had to send a lot of stuff down to the south to deal with me there. And I'm looking at the board from where I'm stood, and I'm thinking, this is going to be really, really difficult. But then I, in my turn, go and inspect, and up in his top left, what you absolutely must do if you're playing Eldar is push some other little chaffy thing out into that ruin on the top there, just to make sure you're controlling where things can come in. Right, you have your, I know it could be hawks, can be whatever else, just hidden behind a wall to make sure there's like a nice sort of screening distance between your kind of backfield, as he had done really well at the bottom, and anything else. And so I saw that gap and I was like, well, I'm getting murdered, so what I'm going to do is put all my deep strikers there, try and make some 9 charges into the things that are just lined up to pop the land fort, and if that goes well, then we've got a game. And I pretty much said this to him and was like, I pretty much, if I don't make the charges here, I'm in huge trouble. And I had to re-roll both charges, but made both charges. So suddenly there's 20 Hearthguard literally at the wall of his home objective in my turn 2, having smashed through like the War Walkers and the Viper and the things that had stuck their heads out on that side. It's then Brendan's turn to be quite sad, because I've been quite I'd been quite sad, and then Brendan was quite sad, and I could tell actually he was looking at it and sort of, it was one of those moments where what he really needed was just a break and a think and a stop, because this was never going to be a game that was going to go all the way to the end of the 3 rounds, right? It's very smashy and crashy, and we get through stuff. So at that point we were like, just take loads of time. I'm going to go get a drink, come back, relax. decide what you're going to do. And when I came back, he had done the complete opposite of what he looked like he was going to do, which was much better, which is that he just went elsewhere. If he comes in and tries to fight me there, he bounces and he loses everything. And he was looking like he thought he was going to do that. Once he had a moment to think about it, he remembered, you're playing elves, you go and hit them somewhere else. Don't worry about trying to hit them where they're strong, go and fight elsewhere. And he made a really, really good game of this. Shadow Spectres came in, killed bikers, left one biker alive, which was massive for me. He kept popping vehicles. I'd managed to put a fort and a Sagittar on my top left, which I think was just about enough to deter him from trying to shift it. And this was big for me in this game because they kept getting me primary, and he was clearing me and hitting me mostly down in the south and trying to get onto my backfield objective. But again, I was screening okay there. That was a lesson from the Chris game because Chris had nicked my backfield objective fairly happily when I played him. So I was like, I'll try and avoid letting him do that this time. It was one of those games where he's murdering me. I'm killing little elves on Overwatch that I can't catch the rest of the time because they're not anywhere I can see them the rest of the time. So I just try and get shots at them on Overwatch. And the Terminators roll into his backfield. I get cards at the right time. I get capture enemy outposts and bring it down just as I'm charging on there to kill a Night Spinner and take it. So that's ideal for me. And then they sort of waddle very, very slowly down towards the middle. It takes them literally the rest of the game to get to the middle, but by the end I have 10 Hearthguard and a champ sat on the middle objective because he's on end of turn. So it's like, right, 10 Hearthguard, can you clear all of that? And by the time we'd got to that point, he'd lost so much of his good shooting, because I'd killed a Fire Prism when I came down as well, that it was starting to look very peaky for him. Even with all of that, still took some tremendous luck because his Way Leaper got into my home field objective and was trying to take it. And he basically just needed to get the warriors to a point where they were battle shocked to give me massive problems. And one of the warriors made 2 6-ups on the feel no pain against the Way Leaper's sword to stay alive. I was literally, oh, that's 3 dead. I was like, oh, hold on, feel no pain. Immediately rolled a double 6. I was like, yes. That's why you remember that stuff. Sometimes, every now and again, you get incredibly lucky. And then at the end of the game, the same Way Leaper needed to make a 10 charge up to my top objective to take it, to make it a draw, I think, by that point, but failed the 10 with a reroll because the fate dice had all gone on other stuff by this point. And so that made it a very narrow win. And there's not many useful lessons in this because I had to take enormous risks and got very lucky. And I think the design of my list was too clunky for that particular game, and I needed more width of assets to be aggressive early on with. But I did get the luck by sort of finding the gap and pushing for that. So I was very happy with it. Brendan played it really well. It was a lovely collaborative game, and he was a really, really good opponent. And so that finished us with 4-1, which with Votan was really nice, and I was very, very happy with it at the end.
Do you think if he had not left you the gap to deep strike your stuff in turn 2, that it would have been really different?
I think potentially, yeah, because I think he can control where the Hearthguard drop then, and the drop costs him all his remaining Bright Lances and a Fire Prism. I think if he's got those, he's not going to kill a brick in a turn, but he can hold it at arm's length for a couple of turns and at least kill one of them. And as it was, both 10 mana Hearthguard were wandering around and he had lost the capacity to really pick them up whilst also playing the game and taking my other assets out.
Did he have a spinner?
He did have a spinner, yeah. So that's big too, right? Because the spinner can tag them. And the spinner, as it was, just kind of got trapped in that corner where they were coming in and then couldn't really get out of there, which was also big. And obviously one of the Hearthguard squads ignores Night Spinner modification anyway, so that once they are that close... But I think in terms of the overall shape of the game, it just meant that although he took my backfield as he was always likely to, I could sit on 3 points for like 2-3 turns. And that was really, really difficult, I think, for him to deal with. I think he had the guns and the movement and the mobility to outscore me whilst also whittling down everything I had if it was sort of tit for tat. But that was a moment in which I was able to just kill 4 units in a turn in a way I wouldn't have been if I'd been just... Because the thing is, if you have, let's say you have Sweeping Hawks there, right? If I drop Terminators there to charge, and the Sweeping Hawks just Phantasm, and then... So as long as the infantry are doing that outer screening until the Hearthguard are down, that's what you need to do, because you can always get them out of dodge if needs be. And you just can't... that was something you did much better when we played. Like, you have to know where the army is before you start really, really playing with it with Votan. That was actually something Connor did really well, right? Once he waited until he knew where stuff was committed before deciding where he was going to hit, and you work out, okay, Hearthguard are realistically going to be about here, so I can go and play over here if I want to, and they're not going to reach me really. So yeah, tight game, interesting game. Great. So that's elves. Let's have some more elves. Capitan, tell us about your run.
All right. So going in, I was apprehensive because I'd invested over 1,000 points into Eldari characters. I'd also been on a really good run recently, and I was like, I'm definitely due some bad luck. Like, I'm not gonna lie, in my recent tournaments, I've been hitting good pathways, dice rolling have been good. Like, it just felt like I was due something. So round one, I drew John and his Drakari. John was an elderly chap who just played for fun. Just played for fun, had a good time. And he was so lovely. So lovely, which is why this felt quite bad. Because on Scorched Earth Dawn of War deployment, going first is actually quite helpful because you can just push forward, especially when your opponent has put all of their Dark Lances in Deep Strike. So it gives you 2 turns to just go like, I'm going to take the board. So I was able to basically send the Avatar down the left flank, the Incarn down the right flank, have 2 turns just to screen him out. So when they then came down, they couldn't actually shoot anything worthwhile. And after 3 turns, we called it because it was kind of just like he was going to be table turn 4. But no, he was so lovely, and it was a bit of a coaching game really for like turns 2 and 3. Just like talking about things we could do like differently and that sort of thing. But yeah, lovely guy, but finished 123. So then we're like, right, what are we going to get next? And I got demons. Now, I've only played demons once before into Jamie Clifford and I lost, so I'm always a bit apprehensive. He had Fate Weaver, Lord of Change, Be'lakor, and then just like a bunch of stuff. And this was such a weird game because for most of it I felt reasonably comfortable, but the score was always really close. And I kind of, with the Incarn, sometimes you throw her out early on, you're like, deal with it. And other times you hold her back and she's so powerful late game. And in this game, I decided to throw her out into my opponent's deployment zone turn 1, or like also top of 2 maybe. And I went, go on then, see if you can. And this happened when I played Jamie as well. The Lord of Change has sustained D3 on his gun, and he rolled like 6.
Who'd have that?
He rolled like 6 sixes. And also I'm like, oh shit, not again. And sure enough, after Lord of Change had shot, Be'lakor had shot, and then he'd realised Fate Weaver was just like millimetres in range. Incarn was dead. I'm like, oh, I mean, it does mean his monsters are still pinned in his backfield, but that also doesn't matter because he can just pick them up. But I'm just,
I forget he can do that.
Yeah, I'm working really hard to keep denying his primary and building that kind of advantage up because my primary is actually really locked down. And the defining moment in this game was turn 4. He had top of turn and he went, right, boom, Lord of Change and Be'lakor in the middle of the board. I don't think you could deal with me now. And I'm sitting there going, I cannot deal with you. And then he rolls his 6-inch charge into Fugan, fails it. Reroll, fails it. And I'm like, okay, right, well, that's given me a bit of breathing room. So what I'll do is I'll try and kill the Lord of Change. Like maybe with my remaining shooting and the Avatar's combat, who's just sat in the middle of the board, as let's face it, he did for most of the entire weekend.
That's his life, right?
He, I might be able to drop the Lord of Change. So I'm like, right, okay, well, I'll just fire this Avatar off. Okay, cool. Well, that's like 6 damage to Lord of Change straight away. We'll take that. Fire this Star Weaver off. Oh, you failed all your saves. Okay, cool. Well, that's another 4 damage. Fire the next Star Weaver. Oh, you failed another 3 saves. That's another 6. Oh, you've got 4 wounds left. And I've only fired 3 things. Okay, right. Well, the Avatar's probably going to charge in and kill him. So I guess I'll just shoot Be'lakor then. Fugan with his 1 shot. Oh, Fugan's done 10 damage. Okay. Wow. let's see if we can get lucky with the night spinner. Oh, I've rolled 4 6s and Belcor's dead. And the poor guy, Andrew, like lovely guy, he's just stood there like, what the fuck has just happened? Going into the event, I was like, my army doesn't have much output, and turn 4, and I've dropped 2
greater demons with about 5 activations.
He was just like, he just genuinely was like, I don't know what's happened. This is insane. So he then kind of had to pick up Kairos and go for a long bomb charge onto my like home field to get capture enemy outpost, which he managed to do. But yeah, he didn't have enough units to score elsewhere, and I think on turn 5 he still had 1 out, a very unlikely out to get the draw. But it finished 94-80. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, my army can kill stuff. Screw you guys.
It's deceptive, right? I remember we had this, we put it on the table and we're like, how is this going to do anything? And he still massacred Votan pretty happily when we played that game. It's it has a lot of damage. Like, it's very concentrated now.
Yeah. Just make your opponent fail all their saves and it's fun.
That really helps. That's big.
Got the win. And so we go next into Ben Pritchard and his Dark Angels.
Tough opponent, yeah.
Yeah, Ben's a really good player. I know he's been around the block of Dark Angels for a while. He's had some really top results with them. And this is probably the game I'm most proud of, like in terms of play, because he had Aggressor Brick, Deathwing Night Brick, all the crazy stuff. He also had 2 units of 3 Centurions, and then just like various other bits. And he got first turn, so it means I don't get to slow something down with a spinner. So surprise, surprise, shock horror, the Deathwing Knights run straight to the middle of the board. And the Aggressor Brick, he's like, I want to keep this hidden. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And he's kind of put me in like this rock and a hard place. So I'm like, well, my avatar has to go to the middle of the board. It's pointless him just skirting around. He'll get nowhere, and eventually he'll just get shot to shit by Oath and all of these aggressors.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, just do what the thing I don't want to do, which is run straight into the middle of this avatar. I've run the avatar into the knights, but I'm able to position it so he's kind of like blocked from all the shooting whilst mercilessly butchering 2 Deathwing Knights and taking like 6 damage back. To which then Ben goes, cool, I'm going to fall back, shoot and charge, and the avatar's dead. So at this point, on turn 2, I've lost the avatar for a meaty trade of 2 Deathwing Knights. And he's holding the board with 8 Deathwing Knights, and the aggressors are starting to push up. I forgot to mention he's got 3 Predator autocannon tanks as well. And I'm like, I don't really know what to do here. I'm a bit fucked. And at this point, the Solitaire did the one useful thing he did the entire weekend, which was die. Because on my bottom right-hand corner, I'd sent him in to get a kill on these infiltrators and Phobos Librarian, and he killed the Phobos Librarian, and none of the infiltrators. So then when he died on the hit back, the Incarn's like, right, well, I don't want to go up to the top end of the field because that's where all of the death is. So this is clearly the flank I want to concentrate on. I'll go over to where those infiltrators are. Not allowed to go over to where those infiltrators are. I have to be pushed out 12 inches. Just so happens that pushes me directly towards his deployment zone and his home field objective, where there is an Incarn side base between one set of
Oh my word. So this is where the as near as possible comes in, right? Because you can basically put him anywhere around the bubble that the infiltrators are blocking him from landing in.
I'm there at the top of my turn 2 with my my Incarn about 10 inches away from his home field objective. I'm like, I see those infiltrators. They're a juicy target.
Oh, my word.
And for the rest of this game, we have this ridiculous situation where he's got everything left in the middle 4 objectives. He's holding all 4.
Yeah.
And I'm holding, because I'm able to deep strike some stuff down onto that home field once the Incarn's killed the infiltrators. I'm holding my deployment zone and his deployment zone from a 10, because it's only a hold 1, hold 2. Whilst the Incarn's like, I'm going to go around and mop up and just starts chopping up aggressors.
This incidentally is exactly why I lose if I don't make the Hearthguard bullshit, right? Because this is it's the elves taking the back and keeping their home field is just a disaster.
Yeah. And we got to the bottom of turn 5, and the scores were pretty much tied. And then I was able to, I scored my cards. He didn't score his, and then I had bottom of turn advantage.
Nice.
And I cleared quite a lot of stuff up. And yeah, it was a really satisfying win. He was quite shell shocked.
Yeah, he looked it. I went over after.
As you would, because he was like,
would be.
turn 2, like Avatar's dead. I'm done, mate. Like, so yeah, I was. That was a good one.
That's a classic game. That's great.
Yeah,
very well done. And
very
yeah,
much
infiltrators have not helped him out there at all.
No, they've backfired. So I'm 3-0. We had a lovely meal. It was like really great just to have everyone out there.
It was
at that meal.
the team atmosphere was very, very strong.
Yeah, and I think that's like a shout out to the rest of our kind of like our team.
Everyone was amazing.
We had 16 6++ guys there, and actually it was just like so positive and such a great vibe, and everyone.
It was a real kind of can-do feeling, and I think as we'll get to in a bit, I think our actual results across the whole team really reflect that. The whole team had a really good time, put a really good showing in.
Yeah. So you're like, 3-0. It's still a Shark Tank. We'll see what I get. And I draw Blood Angels.
Fucking Blood Angels.
It reminds me of Space Wolves at Leicester in my round 4, and I was like, I'm going to do this.
I'm just going to start getting a load of shit from everyone. Because, Lee's like, this is bullshit.
Rightly so.
How'd you get Blood Angels?
Some of us had real armies like Death Guard to deal with that morning, man.
I got.
Who knew you could use fake dice on your pairings?
So I got drawn into Jordan. Jordan from Vanguard Tactics. When you go to events, obviously, most of the time you're playing against someone you don't know, and there's kind of this. Sometimes you play these games and they're just a bit. Must be a bit like it could be a bit awkward, or just it's kind of just you go along and you play the game.
Yeah, it can be a bit tense by then, right?
Yeah, and so I was so glad because this was genuinely one of my favourite games, potentially of all time in an event. We just immediately hit it off. Just like the banter was there, the way we both wanted to play the game. He represented Vanguard Tactics really, really well. And it was just so much fun. Like the whole game was just so much fun, and I genuinely felt like I made like a friend there. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
In terms of the game, obviously Blood Angels aren't exactly making the news at the moment as one of the top armies, and he had a really cool list. But the fundamental issue for him was that he had this Death Company Big Brick, and he had this Assault Jump Pack Big Brick, and the Aggressor Brick. And if he can't use them to deal with my main pieces, if I don't let him into my avatar, if I don't let him into my Incarn, then actually they're going to charge in and pummel 5 Warp Spiders to death and then just die.
Yeah.
So that was obviously my main game plan. And I got first turn, which was annoying because he kind of put him on the. If our cards are the same, then actually.
You were a little stressed at this point.
Because he's got a 5, 10, 15 at the end for holding 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of managed to bait him out to rapid ingress something. His assault company. And I managed to get some shots into them, and we just got lucky and just whittled down quite a few. He then basically the way these trades worked that he was trying to generate was the 10 Death Company killed a Solitaire and then died.
Oh, mate.
The aggressors killed 5 Swooping Hawks then died, and the assault jump pack guys killed 4 Warp Spiders and then died.
This is the thing with the outer screen of the little chaffy infantry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the avatar's there for the counter charge. Yeah. The game ended with Incarn and Fugan on his home field objective, just punching up stuff.
Man. And this is how you said you made a friend?
Yeah. He took it very well. This was the first time Jordan had played into Eldar, and although he chatted to Boxy and stuff about the game, I think until you have experienced Phantasm and the Incarn,
it is true.
You need to experience it, and there was this one moment where He's got his like 5 remaining jump pack guys and Dante ready to charge into the Incarn. He's putting loads of shooting into them, and then he's like, right, I'm going to shoot my whatever tank it was, Lancer, I think, into your Shadow Spectres in the other corner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, yeah, please do that. So he, no, Christopherson, it's
Phantasm and the Incarn. Don't worry, he's a good boy. He's a good boy.
So anyway, he's like, so he does the first round of shooting, and I'm like, right, I'm going to take these saves on my Shadow Spectres in vulnerable save, and then I fail a bunch of them, and I've got one left, and he's like, oh no, I see what's about to happen here. I'm like, yeah, sorry. So he has to fire the rest of the shots he's declared, at which point Shadow Spectres very sadly die.
Yeah, they will do
and
that.
And the Incarn goes, bye-bye, Mortal Rune charging, guys. I'm going to go to the other side of the board, away from all the death. And then he goes in and charges and kills the warp spiders, which were right by the Incarn. And then the Incarn comes back over to the deployment. It's like, hi guys, I'm back again, ready to fight and flaming.
Oh my word!
So that finished 96-53, but genuinely like such a fun game, and like a really great opponent. So if you do listen to this, Jordan, thank you very much.
We love the Vanguard tactics.
So at that point, boys. I'm sat at 4-0.
You are sat at 4-0, and you're like, just one more Blood Angels. That's all I need.
Out there in whatever there are, like 40, 50 of us undefeated. Just give me that one hope, or give me like someone who I'm definitely not going to beat, and I just like can learn a lot and just have a cool experience.
Yeah, 100%.
So my phone's not working at that point. So when Lewis turns around and goes, "You're playing Mike Porter," I genuinely get so excited. I've been playing Harlequin for like nearly 2 years. Massive Harlequin fanboy, massive Mike Porter fanboy. Whilst he was ruling the world with them.
Yeah, he's quite a mythic figure at this point, isn't he?
So to get to play him was like really exciting, and interestingly, I had a big list advantage in this game. I mean, he's playing Harlequins. So, his issue is dealing with the 2 avatars. And obviously there's a big player skill difference. So you're like, that might actually weigh up to make quite a close game.
Might have us a game here.
He was genuinely lovely. I think there probably is, maybe I have to do an episode on this. There is probably a conversation to have on how the top players play a lot of the time in kind of events and sort of their approach to the game in terms of the things they say and do and kind of remind you of or don't remind you of, whereas some of us do these things and some of us don't. I think there's no right or wrong answer to these sorts of approaches to the game, but I think it would be a really interesting discussion to kind of have on it, because over the weekend I went above and beyond to try and make sure my opponent didn't do things which then they would go, oh shit, I can't believe I did that, it was so silly. But I don't think everyone always does that. And I think, they don't always do that.
No, absolutely they don't.
And I think it's an interesting one to kind of like discuss that. In hindsight, basically in this game, he went first, kind of pushed some things out. And my fundamental theory with my army was, it's barring the avatar, which is going to go sit in the middle of the board. It's a really defensive, really hidey army. Go do your little bits and stuff. Yep. And in this game, what happened was I went, kill everything! And I played like an absolute moron for one turn. And that was the first turn. And basically, I put a load of stuff out, sent the Incarn over to a corner, was able to kill 3 boats and their contents. I'm like, all right. And
that's pretty good.
Like, yeah. Man, your avatars are a huge issue in this matchup. This is really, really tough. I'm like, got Mike Porter worried here, lads. At which point, he then bent me over the table for one turn. And that was enough, because he, despite my best thoughts, he dropped the Incarn with relative ease. The Incarn did not stand up to much shit at all. He then picked up, I don't know, like probably like 6 units in total on that turn. Yes, Jack.
What did he kill the Incarn with?
What did he kill the Incarn with?
Because I can't kill the Incarn.
Chris's teacherly instincts kicked in there. That was lovely. Jack was like a little excited child. Like, tell me.
What did he kill? So he killed the Incarn with 2 Skyweaver bikes, 2 Void Weavers, a Starweaver, the troops inside a Starweaver, and then a grenade strap.
I feel like that's an amount of firepower that should kill most things.
It's a reasonable commit, isn't it?
Having played against Mike Porter, he will kill that much stuff on turn 1, whether you present it to him or not. The man's like you went first, right, Chris? That's how you got to kill loads of
he
stuff.
went first.
Okay. He gave you 1 turn off because he saw the list and was like,
yeah.
Okay, fair play.
Yeah, no, he couldn't see. He couldn't get to anything turn 1. Oh, actually, that's a complete lie. So this was one of those things which I kind of mentioned. So he's put this 2 boats over like the other objective I want to be holding, really. So I phantasm out Fugan, and he's like, because I want to send Fugan over to start chopping things, and he's not going to be close enough. He's like, okay, I'll shoot you with the Starweaver, and I'm like, what? Surely you can't see him. And then he just starts rolling the dice, and it's just like he gets through the damage, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess he must have seen him. And like, it's one of those things where like I'm really ill like that weekend, and I'm really hot and sweat. Like, I don't know what they did, but that room hit insane temperatures. And I'm just going through the most. I'm like, it's fine. I've got three up saves to make. It'll be okay. I had 5 3-up saves to make, sorry. And I rolled the first 3 and I failed all of them. Fugan's just dead. I don't remember my 5-up feel no pain at all.
Shit.
I kept forgetting it against Ben Pritchard as well. And he kept reminding me.
It's a big part of him.
It is a big part of him. Mike does have a Fugan on his side as well. He didn't remind me to do it. Not his job, I know, but at the same time, maybe he could. So anyway, Fugan's now lost one of his lives. And I'm like, I swear there was a place where I was like, I could have gone like slightly to the right to not being seen. When we talked about it afterwards, he was like, why did you do that, Fugan? He was like, I don't think you could see him. He was like, no, my boat was here. I could see everywhere. And I'm like, there's nowhere in a million years was your boat where you just like told me. Anyway, so what happened then is the game kind of just, I'm now massively on the back foot. I have a decent turn 2. I managed to start picking up some more stuff, but he has that piece advantage. He's kind of like, he's just done a really good job of out trading me. And I mean, like, so to put it into context, like this discussion of what you should and shouldn't say, on turn 4, I've got my Wart Spiders on his backfield objective. He picks up his Wart Spiders and puts them next to my Wart Spiders. And I'm like, I can just overwatch you, right? He's like,
and they die.
Good point.
They die pretty hard.
And then picks them up and sticks them on the middle objective, where he then flames my avatar to death. I wish he'd gone over to the Wart Spiders, really.
Yeah, should have just overwatched him, man.
And this is like the thing, like.
But he's your hero, so you don't want to do that.
How he do is like, it felt. I was like, sure, Mike Ford's not doing this crap. It is an interesting one. Like, he was still like lovely throughout. We had a good time, and don't get me wrong. There was this one point where he went to drop down his Skyweaves, and he was like, if you just shoved your Starweaver like an inch forward or like half an inch forward, I wouldn't be able to Skyweaver into your Night Spinner. So shall we just move your Starweaver slightly forward? I was like, yeah, if you're happy with that, like, that's really appreciated.
Oh, that's nice.
And so there was things like that. But yeah, it was just like an interesting experience, really. But we kind of spoke about the game afterwards, and as he said, like, there were so many points turn like 3, 4, and 5 where I wish I had the Incarn. If I'd had the Incarn, like, he's causing absolute havoc. My advantage was like the Avatar sat in the middle and just took the primary. Did a really good job of restricting his primary. I just didn't manage my resources well enough. He was like, yeah, in this game, like, you've dropped 3 boats in my head, I'm like, on a danger level of 0 to 10, I'm like, that's a 3.
Yeah.
But you've already done it in turn 1, and you're trying to get me to 10. But however, you've gone and presented me with like 7 units to pick up, and I'm going to pick up 4 or 5 of them, but I'm now in a really good place.
Yeah.
And when I put out the stuff, I wasn't going, I'll go and kill these 4 things, and it's like in this number of units left compared to this number. I wasn't thinking.
No, you were just killing.
I was just
stuff.
like, just kill the stuff. Eldar don't like being charged. Kill all the stuff.
Yeah, but you were also playing
Eldar. So yeah, it was cool. So it actually finished. So going into round 5, guys, I was on 66 points and he was on 56 points.
Gosh,
so
shook hands then.
If we play a 4-turn game, I actually beat Mike Porter. Unfortunately, I was tabled turn 5, so I didn't get to score any more than 66, and he finished on 79. But yeah, I think if I played it again, or if we kind of like played it a bit more slowly and thought it out, definitely think I could have grabbed the win there.
That's great.
But
I backed you. I felt like the tools were there, definitely.
I just didn't. I played by one. I genuinely think I like to think I'm very self-reflective. I didn't think I really played much wrong over the weekend at all. The only thing I definitely played badly was that first turn against Mike.
I think anything that involves the Incarn dying early is bad. I mean, we've had games where you hold it and then it just becomes exponentially more valuable.
Yeah.
When we
He was like, "Why did you do it?" I was like, "I just didn't think you'd kill the Incarn."
Yeah, that's the thing.
And that was why I did it.
You were pushing limit testing there in a way, which is like now you know the matchup, you understand it a bit better.
I think Eldar are one of those armies that have so many different like micro interactions and ways for you to act, like not only in your turn but in your opponent's turn. There's like 10, 20, 100 times more ways that game could go is if you were playing a different faction, especially 2 Eldar players against each other. They're literally, you could play that game 5 times over and the game would look like completely different.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any shame. And what you say about the reminding players about doing stuff. If you hadn't said anything and you put those wall spiders down, you killed them, you would have been a massive tool. So I think you can have your head held high that you did the right thing there.
Absolutely.
And I don't think any of us even would want to win in that kind of way. It's almost cheating yourself out of the joy of it.
He sat there like, "You fucking idiot! You should have just been quiet and then watching them."
Now, if these were Black Templars.
But yeah, I think you've had an absolute blinder of a weekend, Chris.
Yeah, it's just such a strong performance.
I came over a few times, watched the games, and every time I did, it just seemed to remind me of why I hate Eldar so much. But goddamn, were you smashing it? So
yeah, it's a massive performance. Captain's performance to finish the UKTC season with, and hopefully it's got us into the top 10 as well. That'll be the exciting thing. We'll know soon. Come on, Zach, if you're listening, push the button and let me know.
So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and so I mean, placings wise, that put you in the top, in and around the top 30, right?
At the time, I was 28th and very happy.
And then later around
750. And then the shadow run happened, but he got demoted to 34th because Mike Porter didn't play on anymore.
Yeah, Mike, come on, man.
You're a dick.
If you're going to take Chris out, at least win the thing.
Yeah, he didn't play on and other people did. I got dropped down to 34th, but no, it was good.
Yeah, it was a cracking weekend. We'll talk through very quickly how the rest of the team did in a bit. But suffice to say, amazing games had, a lot of really tough games. And again, we're in scary places. We have to play scary games in these scary places. Now that's the level we're all consistently playing at, and it was another weekend like that, and that was great. Cool. Let's move to chat generally about the state of the game and the state of the meta with the information we have from LGT. Then we'll do the ACCA, and then a couple of questions, and then bedtime, I reckon. Sweet. So, those are some faction win rates that are too small for me to read. That's interesting. Is there a way for me to make that bigger?
It's in the chat on your phone as well, if that helps at all.
In the chat on my phone.
It's like 2 bits of media back.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, guys, we haven't test run this.
While we're sorting that out, I have a question for you guys. What's one thing that you learned from this event? What's your big takeaway that you take from this event?
First?
You absolutely can.
Death got a dog shit. 46. Suck on my sweaty nuts. Oh, they're going to be good. Bollocks, are they? We were sat, not to name drop, with a couple of Goonhammer lads, names you might recognise. And I was trying to convince them that Death Guard were bad, and he was like, no, I think they're good. Well, nothing personal, but read the numbers and weep. Anyone else?
Lee, how about you? What did you learn?
I learned that I'm my worst enemy.
Classic chaos.
Lewis is my worst enemy. He was looking at me on a show I wasn't even on.
Yeah, I think for me it was, I've learned to take some time and chill out a little bit before I enter my next matchups, and then actually play Warhammer.
I think from a sort of overall game state, it's been a shooting edition. It still is in many ways a shooting edition, but that is starting to shift just a little bit, right? We're seeing just a few stabby smashy armies beginning to have their way. Obviously CSM do all of it, and that's great. But Templars, World Eaters, there were a few real standout performances from those in and amongst it. I think combat definitely has a place in the game now that some of the worst ways in which that was getting fucked over have been got rid of. So that's an exciting sign. So that was one thing I was really struck by, was that, combat's starting to have some green shoots of recovery there, and that excites me as someone who loves smashing things.
It's back, baby. It's back.
Yeah, I think it just felt good to have a very balanced event. Like, it seemed that anyone was kind of like beating everyone, and LGT, it's such a lottery who you draw. It's such a lottery, and I think the fact that you got, so like nearly every faction was represented in the 4-1 bracket.
Yes, it's looking a lot better.
That's
a
awesome.
lot better.
That's so awesome.
It was much better balanced. I felt like we've arrived back at a point where if you play better, you can win the game into most things. Like if there's a decided gap in how it's played, then that should go to the person that plays better now, which is good. And again, as we saw from the top set, all our favourite names and scary people were there. They're back again. It's no longer a mix of people who went first with Wraith Knights and people who didn't. And so that's all really healthy. And the game itself felt good fun to play. Again, I think I was playing dwarves in ice cream vans, which was nice because that's such a straightforward way to play the game after playing stuff that just hides and dies for a very long time. That's been really, really fun. Simon Harris says, except Eldar, who I'll never love. No, when Eldar are in a healthy spot, I enjoy playing them because it's fun wrecking a house of cards, right? That's a fun thing to do. It's not easy to do at the moment, but it is very fun putting spanners in those wheels, I think. And they do feel like an army where gaps in that plan can be made now, and the plan can start falling apart. As again, if you want to watch some War Games live games and watch that happening in real time, the Liam VSL game from the final is quite remarkable for that as well, right? Just watching the Eldar list being taken apart, like pulling wings off a butterfly, basically.
Rob's game also very good on War Games Live. Check that out.
Oh yeah, well, our very own Rob was on War Games Live, and War Games Live man described it as his favourite game of the weekend, and of course he would, because Rob is one of the best people in the world. So go watch that game. Drakari versus Admech, like nothing ever changed, and we're still playing 9th edition.
Let's play.
So which round of the tournament was that? That must have been like quite late on, those two top winning lists. Was it round like 7, 8?
Yeah, it was the finals. It was a go first final.
It was the finals in my heart.
Yeah. Did you have any key takeaways, Jack? Any lessons?
For me, I think it is the place that fixed objectives has on UKTC maps. I think I certainly underestimated it. I was having a lovely chat with Carl Grundy, and he mentioned something to me about fixed objectives about on Purge. He's like, you just never take them. I'm like, oh, you never take tactical on Purge, do you? I'm like, yeah. For the people that don't know why that is the case, would you mind explaining it to me?
So we can both laugh at them together.
Yes, correct. Yes, and he kindly explained it to me. And from that point on the event, I kind of thought a bit more about fixed objectives, and I think they're very strong on UKTC boards, particularly.
They are in this current expression, yeah.
the position of the terrain with the bunker ruins around the middle and the L's around the outside ones makes stuff like cleanse and teleport homes really easy to score.
Yes.
And I think I do like the fact that you can choose between tactical and fixed. My nightmare is having to go tactical every game. That's the worst. That like if that's just becomes a thing where everyone does that every game, that would be the worst thing ever. I like the choice between the two and there being a dynamic there. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the balance between them is pretty healthy. I have some concerns around 3-point teleport homers with cleanse. I think that's a lot of not coming out and getting enough points to win the game, which we've had a lot of in 9th edition and was one of the things people really didn't like in 9th edition. So I don't know quite why teleport homers got boosted for the middle, because that just happened in the change between, I think, when the Leviathan came. Like, it just at some point it changed. When the pack came, it changed, and I was never sure that was needed. But at the moment, it doesn't seem like it's having such a dominating effect as to be too crucial. So we'll have to see. I don't love those kind of completely schematic plans being completely dominant, but as you say, having the option, particularly into certain armies and situations, is definitely nice.
It's not a free 20, right? You don't get a free 20 on that just by doing the middle. So I think there is room for it. It is a safer option. It does put your opponent on the clock. It stops them sitting in an artillery park in the back of the board.
I don't know if the issue is necessarily with the secondary, although I think it is strong. I think the terrain.
Yeah, that's what I said
really didn't like this set of UKTC terrain. I'll say it. I thought it was really unpleasant to play on compared to past experiences. It wasn't bad. Like, it's still fine.
Is that because you were running a bunch of armigers and a great unclean one?
No, not at all. It was because people could just sit like a rhino or a truck in that forward L that was on almost every map and get like 15 points. And
just can fit a land fortress in there, just saying.
Yeah, and you could do that with a transport after your stuff had got out, and they go, oh, here's half my secondary sorted, and I'm going to get 15 points, not have to think about it. And like, yeah, you can put pressure on them, but I don't like that being set up for success. It feels like if you're throwing away scoring units, doing it in your opponent's deployment gets you 5 points because it's harder to do. But being in the middle of the board, while easier to get to, shouldn't be safe.
Yeah, I think that's hope. I think it's probably a legacy of towering. And it's be interesting to see if it stays indefinitely, because I think that's a big part of why the board is like it is right now.
I'm assuming there'll be a major rework of the terrain pack and hopefully the mission pack as well, because I don't think it was bad for the missions to be easy for LGT.
Yes.
Early into the edition.
Oh, the missions were very samey. We literally played the same one twice, pretty much.
Bland, which was fine because
I don't play GSC anymore. Chuck Scrambler Fields in or whatever it is. That's fine. Fuck him. Don't give a shit. I'm a Votan main.
I'm hoping it's a conscious decision that they made because they wanted it to be as smooth as possible for the 750 attendees.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, well, you say that now. If they don't change it for the next event,
bung like Vital Ground in. I would even have the ritual. I wouldn't hate the ritual. I know that's going to produce some absolute feel bads. The ritual, you make objectives with your army during the game. It's very silly. Me and Stuart had like an 80-all draw on it. It was the best. It was so silly.
I do have one more thing. Sorry, you've just you've triggered something. We had a lovely chap come up to us on Saturday morning. A guy called Stu, who I think I saw in the chat earlier. Sorry, I didn't catch you while you were here. He just said he came up, said he loved the podcast.
That's really super nice. Yeah, there was a lot of that, and that's amazing. I mean, it's I actually didn't reflect on it at the start of this because this is really bad. So many of you have been so nice in recent times that I don't want to just keep declaring it every single time, but it is awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
You're great
absolutely
people.
Awesome. We're very,
come and
very
see
grateful.
me.
It's a nice guy. So.
Yeah, I'll have a pen with me if you want a signature or something.
Yeah,
everyone was really kind.
Cool.
Yeah, I've also got a very nice super chat. I don't know if you want to read that out, Chris.
Ooh.
So we had the one and only Vanguard Tactics Bridge, who's probably Paul Bridge, I imagine.
Surely Paul Bridge.
Well that other coach, VT coach Bridge.
Great to see local teams doing well at the big events.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And done,
Paul Bridge did well. Yeah.
He had a great run with Thousand Suns, which was awesome.
25th. We're here.
Yeah, hell of a placing. Well done, Paul. Really, really nice, and thank you for that. That's awesome. Right, I mean, let's reflect very briefly on these stats. I think the most important thing for our listeners is that Imperial agents need immediate nerfing into the ground, right? There have been players just abusing Imperial agents at various events I've been at. It's 2 events now I've been to where Imperial agents have been being abused. Sai, we're looking at you. And the 60% win rate speaks for itself. They evidently need to be taken outside and shot, unfortunately. And so I think that's the most obvious and egregious thing from this data. But is there anything else jumping out at us here?
One of you's going to have to say it.
Black Templars, 57%. I know we touched on it earlier.
Black Templars were good, right?
Yeah.
Black
really
Templars
solid.
were very, very
I'm
good.
pretty tempted. The fact that
just do it.
But the Marines are getting fun stuff as well, and they've lost Oath, so I feel like that really sort of like knocks off the fun.
It really does, actually, because a lot of the Templar stuff relies on strength 4 AP1 damage. And if you take Oath away, the reroll to wound for Oath, they get absolutely pummeled by that.
If the Salamander's detachment doesn't do it for me, I might have a check, see if I can just bung a load of lethal hits in there and just go, I have more knives than you.
Yeah, I do. It does look fun to play to me. Yeah. I just love that there's a 20-man Space Marine unit just wandering around with some like religious nutters in it. It's just that's just a good look on the board. It's cool.
It's great.
I'm sure that I think for them the novelty factor was probably quite big this weekend. I think almost about half the team played into them and had a rough time because they'd never played it before.
People are teching for vehicles and monsters.
Yeah.
So when you bring just a Carpenter boys who are mixed profiles, really hard to deal with, get cover, it's a good one.
Fino Paint is really good.
Lewis says, can't work out why Tyranids are at 39%. Lewis, that is the same reason that Drakari are at 39%. They are not currently especially strong and they're hard to play. And that is a tough combination. Fragile things in a quite scary game, not so easy.
I think it's also because the new codex has just come out and people haven't really nailed down.
There's figuring out to be done, right?
Like an
basically, people haven't come up with the cutty cook.
Here we go again.
I need rebooting again, boys.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm here to talk about Warhammer. People haven't come up with the cookie cutter list yet for everyone to mindlessly follow. So we're going to be seeing a bit of a change there as soon as people work out what the best things are.
I think we'll see a lot of similarities in Chaos Space Marine lists after LGT.
I think so.
The Chosen have arrived and they have their minibuses.
So I think Power Armor Drakari looks like a hell of a way to play the game right now. Guys yeeting out rhinos is very scary on these boards. Thousand Suns, Deathwatch, GSC all actually sticking about pretty well as far as win rates are concerned here. Like they're not done. They all got hit. We were all a bit pessimistic about them, but they all
sample size. I think we'll say there.
It's not that many players for sure.
No.
But what is cool is that of the factions that were languishing at the bottom, except Drakari, they've managed to bring all of them up, and one of them they brought up so much that it's winning more games than everybody else.
Fucking bullshit.
Which is nuts.
And Sisters is still way down there.
Yeah, Sisters also absolutely shat on. But yeah, I mean, Votan, Tau, Admech have all been basically pumped back to life, which is awesome. World Eaters look a lot better. Death Guard look a lot better. So I think the fact that even a few months in, you can have changes that radically change things like that is really exciting. Really, really cool.
Chaos Knights are at a perfect 50%.
Perfect 50%.
Which really sums up how I feel about them, I think.
Votan at a perfect 53. Better and unlikely to change. That's what I like.
Yeah.
That's good.
Grey Knights just slightly worse. So
yeah, Grey Knights, again, I think they're super cool right now. But again, I think you look at it and it just looks like there's a real rock, paper, scissors spread going on because different things. And you've got to feel sorry for Necrons because really it was rock, paper, scissors, Necrons, and everyone made sure they brought something to smash Necrons with, and that's pretty much how
I feel sad about watching people park 20 models and go, oh, done.
But yeah, no, you are right.
Were you busy last week, Jack? Did everyone come on down to your gun warehouse?
I think they did.
I had a flash sale, mate. I had a flash sale. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the other thing in the room, right? Tau right up there, 60.1%.
Yeah.
I think there's a combination of stuff going on there. I think they probably get an extra 3% there from the fact there's so many marine bodies at the event. And Tau just absolutely eat anything that's not Chaos Marines for breakfast.
It's going to be a good winter for them.
And the full Forge World bollocks of Tetras, because you need full rerolls.
Tetras are definitely part of the problem, I think.
So here's the thing with Tetras, right?
There we go.
Like, I think the rerolls aren't that important. It's the fact that you get 14 toughness 7 wounds on 2 bodies for 80 points. That's kind of the issue with them, because they just sit there and do secondaries, or you fire like a las cannon or some kind of insane night weapon at them and it kills one, and the other one's still alive because it's behind a wall, and then you can't shoot with anything else. And
that's fair. I've been shot by stuff guided by Tetras, and I think the reroll hits are a big deal, and they
already hit on threes,
wreck
and they
my
can get
fucking face is what they do.
yeah, they already hit on threes. They can get reroll ones anyway. Like, that's not the worst thing about them. If they didn't have that, you would still take them at that price point. If they didn't do the rerolls to hit,
sure,
you would still take them, as long as they cost 80 points. So I think they are good, but yeah, I think I wouldn't cry if you can't get any hold of any 412 ones. But if you can get some cheap printed ones, you won't go very wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be good. It'll be interesting to analyse, because obviously Tau didn't make it into the actual upper reaches, right, of the event. They fell down in the end, and I think they do have some predators amongst that top set. GSC, most of the time I've played them, have been similar to this, where like the win rate is good, but there's a couple of things out there that just eat them, so you never quite close.
Chaos Knights, according to someone who wouldn't understand that Tau are really good at killing Chaos Knights. I stopped arguing with him. I was like, okay, I'll let you have.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to figure that out and see as we go what the kind of matchups that hold. I mean, it must be Eldar and CSM, because that's what made it through and not them, right, in the end. But it's CSM in particular feel like one that Tau can win.
The other one that are really rough for Tau are Orcs.
Yes,
because of all the feel no pain and just activation locking, like that keyword. And the actually Black Templars are really difficult for Tau, again because of the feel no pain. Most Tau lists pack a ton of damage to shooting, which gets really, really messed up by 5 of feel no pains and even 6 of feel no pains. So I have to imagine a lot of Tau players fell down to Orcs and Black Templars as well.
Absolutely. And obviously Eldari is still strong, CSM is still strong. I think the top does with Black Templars are the surprise, right? The rest of it kind of looks like I'd say we were expecting it to look.
No, hold on. Admech. How did I miss that? 53.6%.
Yeah, Admech are cooking, man. Admech are cooking. They're back. I mean, it helped that Malik was running Admech at this event. I
don't know what you mean. He's retired.
He is retired. He still found time. He still found time to kick Ed Watson twice in one weekend, right?
Did he really? Oh man, I'll send him a
chat for one.
I think Admech. Yeah, exactly. I think Adeptus Mechanicus have that surprise factor and the unknown factor, and also, yeah, it's not a bad index at all. It has some nasty tricks and tools in it if you can push yourself to play it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very interesting meta at this point. I think that's why there's a general revived interest for the game, and it's going to be interesting to see where the Marines book land. One thing I'm delighted for, I know the stats are really bad for Tyranids, but I would be much happier living in a world where every new book was a bit rubbish and then they tuned it up than every new book is the world-ending, meta-defining threat and everyone just plays that, because that is wank and boring.
Do you remember how the start of 9th edition was?
I do remember.
How Space Marines got their book and they got worse, and Death Guard got their book, and we don't need to talk about that because Death Guard are always bad. Yeah, I like the trend, but I'm gonna wait to be excited.
We know that we need to get about 8 or 9 books in.
About 12 months in before we hit Drakari.
Yeah, so we will see, but it's a good start, and I'll take that at this moment in time.
The last thing I would say is it's quite cool that about half the factions have over 50% win rate and half the factions have under 50% win rate, rather than 3 or 4 factions having above 50% and everyone else being below. That makes me happy.
And there is relatively few outside of what they term the Goldilocks zone now. There's a few kicking around it. It's not as bad as it was, but we will see. Space Wolves trash, apparently. That's interesting.
What do you mean, apparently? Have you read their army rules?
People have been talking about Thunderwolves in Discord for like the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. But not as Space Wolves. As Gladius. Genuinely, I'm not messing with you. The rules
Ultramarines cosplaying.
I think you'd be better off not running an army rule than that bad. That's a slight exaggeration, but you may as well not be running an army rule.
Great.
That's coming from the Chaos Knights player.
Yeah, nuts.
Yeah, I got to use my strat once.
Right. Let's talk through our 6++ ACCA results, and then we'll do questions and go to bed.
They are on the screen now.
They're on the screen now. So thank you to everyone who put some guesses in for this. Some of you were pretty good. There were some good predictions, and we've gone through them here. And as you can see, there's some variance, but in the main, people weren't a mile out with most of these. So the wonderful Paul James was predicted for 3.6 wins, so people swinging around between 3 and 4. And he got 3, but he was actually very unlucky to hit Stephen Box in the final round and push that game really close, so it could very easily have been 4. Well done, Paul. Franco was predicted 3.2. There you go, Franco. They were predicting you more than 3 on the main. Franco was a bit worried. Everyone was predicting him down, but I think those were outliers. And Franco got 3, but he did also draw with John Swallow, which is a hell of a result. People understood Lee Jones perfectly. 3 wins. Everyone said it. And that is exactly what he delivered. Lee has the God-given gift to always win more games than he loses, basically whether he's played Warhammer in the last year or not, and he put that into practice here with his Custodes. I was predicted 3.7, and I got a 4, so slightly overperformed. I'd put myself as a 3 as well, and I think with Votan, 3 would have been very, very plausible. So I was chuffed with that. People understood Rob Kimpton perfectly, put him down for 3. He got 3, duly delivered. Aaron had a rough run in the end, slightly under-delivered. He was predicted 3.5. I think we were all very optimistic about Aaron going in because Aaron's a killer, been playing really well, but he had a couple of rough matchups. He did beat Jack Tight, which is a fantastic result, and I was next to that game. It was a really cool game, but finishing with 2 wins. Lewis predicted 3.2 and then overperformed with a 4 with his NIDS, and I think wins the award of most under-predicted and underrated player for the Pluse with his Tyrannid Horde. And if you want to learn how he did it, you can go and watch the video where he's just talked to Davey about how he did it, which is why I wasn't allowed to be on this show. Do go and watch that one. I'm sure it's really interesting if you like Tyrannids.
Honestly, it's a very impressive talk about how the tactics played out of Tyrannids.
Yeah.
So
Lewis is a really interesting person because he's an advocate for playing the game in a really fun, chill way, and that's what his events are about. But somewhere inside him is a little angry killer man who's very good at 40k.
I've been telling you the whole time. He's an angry killer. Did you believe me? No. I'm going to go missing someday. It'll be your fault.
Scrivo was predicted for 2.9 wins, people swinging between 2 and 3. He delivered 2, but he also had a draw, and he was very, very close to positive win rate with 3 wins here. So a fantastic showing from Scrivo. Alex had a very rough weekend, but he did beat a member of Team Iceland, which helps us out as we try and get top 10 for UKTC. So that is the only thing that matters, Alex. And if you took the rest of the weekend off because you were tired after that, I forgive you, and that's absolutely fine. Jack Chapman predicted 3.7 and got 3, again, knocking in and around that 3-4 mark. And I think that, again, is matchups and luck and a bit of experience.
I got completely outplayed in my last game.
And that
kind
happens, right?
Probably a 40% to win matchup.
Yeah, so that can absolutely happen. Jamie East predicted 2.8 and delivered 3 because Death Guard has 60% win rate. Army, fantastic army, genuinely brilliant. One of the strongest, most interesting armies in 40k. And Jamie, obviously, a fantastic, just dynamic and complicated.
I've been baiting people for my entire life. You got nothing on me. The words roll off my back.
People, I think, slightly overestimated Ed Fawcett, thinking he'd get 3.1 wins.
Not me.
And Ed delivered 3, so no, pretty much bang on the money. And that was your assessment going in, very much so. Chris was predicted 3.9, delivered 4, so did actually better than people expected. And Chris has been playing great. Lee was predicted 4, as we've just heard, for reasons very specifically detailed. Lee absolutely shat the bed.
What a loser.
Because he was a bit tired because he'd played an international standard game at first thing in the morning. Oh, no, Lee did very, very well. We're extremely proud of him, and he's going to be back again, and even angrier next time. Ben was predicted 2.4 and got 2, but again got a draw, so really, really solid record there as well. And Dave Murdoch was predicted 2.9 and got a 2. He's only just come back to Grey Knights, so he was figuring that out. Now, the bad news is that the person that won the 6++ accumulator with the best bet for what we would achieve was fucking Paul James.
And the second closest was Paul James with
the second was Paul James.
The second entry.
The second was Paul James with his amended guess after we'd amended the names on the roster. So, Paul, you're very, very good at what you do, buddy. We'll talk about whether you want a Farseer Skyrunner and a Black Templars champion or not. Actually, I could see Paul James running that Black Templars list. That would be very, very terrifying. But we've enjoyed doing the accumulator, and I think it's something we'll crack out for future events, and we might ban our own team from doing it.
Or from winning.
Or from winning it, right? Yeah, 100% in the future. Cool, great. Thanks very much for bearing with us through all of that. Right, let's rattle through a couple of questions and then call it a night. So if you have additional questions, chuck them in the chat. But I think we had a bunch in the Discord, so we'll start there. But do feel free to get involved. So, do you have updated thoughts on fixed versus tactical? Yes, we do. We've talked about some of them. I'm going to come out swinging for tactical, right? Because I took tactical a lot this weekend, and the spikes in point scoring were actually massive in some of my games. I think there were a couple of matchups where it was like, if I bring it down, I can reliably get this amount. But actually scoring points for basically easier things in a couple of turns and then getting 8 for bring it down in a big moment in the game worked out better in some ways. And I think it is a little bit less easy to signpost and to know exactly what's going to happen. I do think some armies like fixed more than others, and Votan have that nice thing at the moment where they just have little idiots you can throw away and do jobs throughout the game, and that's kind of part of how the army currently functions. So I don't think it's for every army, but I did think tactical still very much had a place, and I was actually scoring higher, I think, with that in the main than I would otherwise have been. But matchup dependent for sure. Anyone else got anything to add on that?
Chaos Space Marines, I think they are being tailored towards your fixed objectives because you want all the blunt force going forwards, and you don't want to waste any efficacy.
This has always been where they sit, right? They always want a direct, aggressive game plan, and that still makes sense. I remember when the Chaos book came out, it was like, oh, people are taking Assassinate, and we just had like months of people being like, oh, Assassinate's a trap. It's like, it's not a trap if they kill every single one of you, is it? That is absolutely fine in that instance. So yeah, I think that's right. It's army dependent. And CSM, who are a big elite hammer army, really want that. It was interesting in the final. I think they both took just killy fixed pretty much, right? They were just killing the shit out of each other, and I can see the case for that.
I went tactical all event just to. I think that's more of a Chaos Knights thing. You need the additional CP, and I think the only time I could have seen a case for fixed was if I wanted it into Tau, but a good Tau player is just going to go, oh, I'll just not let you kill anything, make you push to me. You can't stand behind cover because you're a big vehicle list before you shake your head. And I'd have had to put myself so out in the open that his go turn would have probably pretty much tabled the list that I had. So I didn't want to risk it.
100%. Yeah, I do. I want to play into Tau a bit more and try tactical because
no one.
No, but I legitimately do because I had a good game with Carl Grundy where he narrowly won, and I think the fact that I'd gone fixed and he knew exactly what the demands of that were and could leverage that. He'd accepted his 20 on Bring It Down, and he knew he just had to wreck me on homers. That was all he needed to do to make sure he got home on the secondaries, and he did it. And so that's something where it's a little bit player dependent, matchup dependent, but it can go against you for sure. Well done, Simon Harris, by the way, on your solid performance with Admech. That's awesome. Bunch of good Admech players out in force. That's awesome. Chris is an Admech player. Maybe one day we'll coax him out on them at some stage.
If they bring back 20-man Ranger blobs, then sure.
When their win rate goes above Eldar's, we'll...
On Grey Knights, mate. This season on Grey Knights.
Yeah, he's looking at Grey Knights right now.
He did say that, to be fair.
But what do you think of the data slate after a few big events, especially of changes to Elves, Custodes, Imperial Knights?
Good start.
I think it's good. I'm not going to say it's bad. Like more action is better than less. I think in this situation, particularly where we were before. But they definitely went too hard on some factions, and they did not go hard enough on others. But the likes of Sisters of Battle, Imperial Knights.
Imperial Knights got murdered.
Yeah,
sure.
like they're still struggling. Some of them because they didn't get buffed enough. Some because they got nerfed too hard. And then we have the likes of other factions, Eldar up at the top still. So I don't think it's like was a super like laser guided absolute bullseye, dead on. But I think it was a great data slate, and it changed the meta, which ultimately is what you want.
I think
from a
that's
data
the
slate.
thing, right?
You want things to get changed up.
Yeah,
Just
it was a radical
more.
change, and I think a lot of us were quite demoralised before it, and still I think the energy has been positive since it, and I'm inclined to judge it on those merits, and I think people's general interest and enthusiasm for the game is up, and that's a positive sign.
I think we're looking at like an 85-90% success. So
yeah, exactly right, and it's made Leagues of Votann the best army of the game, which I'm obviously delighted.
There was some good things coming out as well. People were saying, I don't know if they're public, as in who's been picked up for the design team, but I have faith now.
They've made some good decisions on that front, right? So. Some really cool decisions. So that's awesome. So yeah, I think you can call it a successful slate. We've had slates like it that have done equivalent levels of shake-up before, and I think it's good. If there's a few overcorrections here and there, they can come back to it in a few months. I am really liking the look of Jakari right down the bottom, and I'm just sort of like, go on, do something really stupid.
Right.
You're gonna have so many transports.
Just fuck it completely up.
Mantalist, 150 points.
You're gonna have 8-point.
You can't give them points drops now. They already have a billion units. But you can't.
You can say that they can't. But they will. You can keep saying that, but that's what's going to happen. You can kick and scream all you want. It's happening, Tom.
I wouldn't be the end of the world. I'd rather they just made the melee good. But it's like, that's exciting.
Or at least cheap.
That'd be a little Christmas treat, I reckon. So I'm excited for that. Right, next question. How do you guys go about finding practice games, especially if you can recall a time before you were affiliated with a team?
Join a local club.
Yeah.
Like we
find where people are playing games near.
I had Lee from who I got back in contact with after university. But then when I realised I wanted to play a bit more than like once every 2 months, I just found the local War Games Club, which was the one at Chatteris, and that's where I ended up meeting Paul, Dave, Jamie, Mark, Kieran. All good stuff. So yeah,
absolutely. I think clubs are great. You can put out feelers on sort of Discord and find out where people are based in your area. I think that'll work. But also just look online and ask around. There is a club almost everywhere now. It's popular. It's growing. The game is really thriving right now. I walked into a shop to buy a Sloppity Bilepiper, and I got chatting to John Scrivens, and that was it. From there, that was it. I was just,
it's your fault, is it?
It's So there we go, and that's it. It can be those little connections.
For me, I was attending local RTTs. We have a couple of venues for gaming in Peterborough, and through there I met people, and then got into like a Crusade League, and now I know people in the sort of local area that I can play against, as well as obviously me or you fine gentlemen.
Yeah, and I think I will pick up just on the practice games I mentioned of your question, Craig, because I think that is relevant, which is that if it depends on the sort of practice. It sounds like you're thinking about it in terms of practicing to get better and to play, and I think one bit of advice that I think is always good is the people that beat you and you have a good time as well. Those are great people to play, right? Tough games, games where you're learning a lot, and those are people you want to have around. And those are, it can be a little, especially when you're learning or trying to get better, it can be a bit disheartening, and sometimes you can have that urge for sort of more comfortable games, but tough games will make you better quicker. And so keep those scary folk around. That's why I keep Lee on my team these days.
We can't make him leave. None of us are willing to ask him.
Whenever I've played like the Team England guys, and I've always said, like, what advice would you give for getting better? Literally all I ever say is just play people better than you. Yeah. It's the only way, because you kind of, I think, especially for some of us in our team, you've hit that level now where we're solid competitive tournament goers and players, and actually in order to make that next step up, you almost need to be thinking about the game in a kind of a different way.
You do, yeah.
And the only way you can realistically learn that way is by playing like these coaching kind of games and stuff with those.
We've outgrown ourselves.
Sad times. I think what we've done well recently, though, as a team, is the stuff that you've been putting on for us, Chris, which is kind of trying to think of the game in that way.
Yes.
And by having a structured way of arranging games and trying to push ourselves a bit as players.
I think we've done a good job getting more out of the practice that way for sure.
For those who don't know, basically we set up a system called Kick On, where we kind of gather together as a group of kind of like 3, 4, whatever, but we play the game collaboratively, and we really talk through and question everyone's decisions and just try and play the game as optimally as possible. And we're taking away the result from the game, and we're actually just focusing on how does this matchup play out? What should we do? Why are we doing it? And we only might play like 2 or 3 turns.
And you might have several of us involved, right? Several people talking and advising. And
it helps us to understand the games. And it makes a big difference, when you go to an event and you're like, oh, actually, we've had a really good analysis of this one matchup. You have a much better understanding of it. So that's really
we've got our various specialists working on new books as they come out. We've been Chris has been giving us homework about looking into different armies. We've been sharing literally the secrets of this is how you beat my army, what I am playing, and all of that stuff. It makes for you can really fast track practice because you've got a bunch of ideas without even having to play games at that stage. So for really moving, I think we've had a great time lately with that, and it's been really positive. But you don't have to do that if that all sounds a bit intense, Craig.
It's not our whole team that's doing it.
We're pretty intense, or some of us are pretty intense, it's fair to say. Right, this is a fun one. Just Make Stuff asked, did they do enough to Eldar?
No.
I feel like we've kind of covered this
data.
One.
Well, I think we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. They're still strong. I think my concern with Eldar right now is that the tools they are now leaning back on to win are some of their sort of most twattish tools. Let's put it that way. Like the Night Spinner, right, is horrific, and you see books go through this stage. Remember, like the Tyranny Warriors, like you see these kind of like death knells when you start trimming away some of the good things a book has, and players fall back to these last few really egregious things, and it's usually a bad sign because it usually means it's one more hammer, and then it's good night.
And it never goes 60 to 50. It's 60 to 35.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've chipped it down. They've rallied around these last few units, and the next one I think will be pretty fated.
I wonder if you removed the Night Spinner. If you just removed the Night Spinner from the index, where they would sit.
Be quite interesting.
I still think they'd be quite far up there. I think a lot of the issue with Eldar doesn't come from one place. I think it's the fact it's a really an amalgamation of everything, because ultimately the book basically has better versions of everyone else's rules. Where other factions have to roll
much stuff. It might feel like
you're right. That's what I was going to come on to in a minute. Is that they've just basically given them very hefty points nerfs. But I think it's the rules are the problem. Stuff like Phantasm, stuff like having twin link dev wounds on a Night Spinner, stuff like auto CP generating where other factions have to roll like a 4+ each turn to get it. Stuff like that. Just having better versions of other people's stuff is what pushes Eldar above and beyond. And I think you can keep nerfing the rules, but really good players you keep nerfing the points, but really good players are going to learn how to play around stuff like Phantasm and just manipulating the nonsense with Lone Operative and stuff like Yinkan. The Yinkan, as Existence UK says in the chat, the Yinkan does something no one else can do, and ultimately, until the Yinkan datasheet gets changed to stuff, even if it's like you can't charge after that thing happens, or you only teleport to Eldar units dying, something like that to limit it. And it's always going to be an auto take. It doesn't matter how expensive it is.
But it's not an auto take anymore.
No, I don't think it is at this stage. That's the thing. It's
all the Discords I'm on there,
but it is a remarkable unit though.
I think I was being a bit facetious when I said auto take. I think you take it in 95% of scenarios, and I think a lot of people that don't take it at this point are going to just because they're bored of it.
Yeah, that's also.
I'll get bored of the Incan. The most fun unit.
It is super fun. It is super fun.
I don't find it fun. I'm fucking sick of it.
I love the Incan. I absolutely love the Incan. I will defend it. I just wish that's for if anyone's listening to rebalance Drukhari. Just let me take the Incan. That's all I'm asking. Don't care. Probably don't need any other changes. Just bung the Incan in current Drukhari. And let's cook. I
think that says mountains about how good the Incan is, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely. All related, what are the new concerns in the meta that need attention? I do want to I don't think we need to live in a state of permanent alarm. And I think at the start of 10th, there was a risk that we were going to do that. I'm reluctant to immediately look for the next sort of moral panic because we had a rough start to 10th. And I think it's important to enjoy the game.
It's Tau. It's Tau.
I think
that's a good clip. Someone clip that. That's good.
I think Chaos Space Marines need a little tap down just on the Forge Fiend point cost. I think 180 points is a bit egregious for a Forge Fiend. And something else. Other than that, I think
for CSM, I've chatted with Lee about this, and he doesn't like the change. But I would actually change the Mark of Nurgle strat to be the same as Phantasm, so infantry only, so vehicles can't be essentially made lone operatives because that's batshit. And it's a very it's an absolutely batshit thing for them to be able to do.
Just to go to something that we haven't talked about at all, part of the reason that Tau is so good is if you get in a stalemate gunfight with them and you want to play back, they have 2 ghost kills that can just put shots downrange, quality shots that you can't shoot back. It's very much this.
Sorry, ghost kills are not good shots.
Well, it depends how well your opponent rolls.
They're swingy. Ghost kills are swingy, man. Yeah.
Alex rolled pretty hot with them, so my opinion on them has definitely gone through the roof.
Fair
For Tau, I'd just be tempted to just take Tetras out and then see where they are, because I think it is hard to actually judge the index when it's leaning on a Forge World unit that someone just... I know you don't take Tetras. I know you don't take Tetras.
Look at my results. That's where they're at.
Solid, and I would say reasonable results, right? You know, you're not there sort of annihilating literally anyone you play. So that's a positive, I think. So Tetras, I think, probably need a look at, and then probably avoid doing anything else until you've bonked them on the head.
I think the problem with Tau at the moment is that they're very... they have some matchups which are very good for them and some matchups are very bad for them. Yeah. They're very binary. And Tetras are one of those things that are like patching the hole with improving secondary play and making the Crisis unit more reliable. So I think if you take that away, it would hit the Tau win rate, but I think it hits it in an unhealthy way, in the sense that you're going to get like really binary, like you're just going to ruin Marine players and they're not going to have any fun. And then you're going to play against something like Orcs, and you're not going to have any fun. So,
yeah, it's an interesting one. The main thing is that it doesn't, certainly at the top, it doesn't look like it needs as drastic surgery as it had needed before this point, right? It's stuff that I think should be able to be curtailed relatively effectively. So it'll be interesting to see. For armies at the bottom, they just need the same kind of careful attention that a few of the strugglers got that brought them up. And that can be done. They've demonstrated that can be done. So I think that'll be absolutely fine. Ultimate Funk asks, was there ever a moment at 4-0 that Chris thought, I might do this, you know? And did he have supply arranged for Monday? If so. I thought you could do it. I fully believed you could do it. I came and gave you a little hug and said you could do this. Sent you on your way.
I had a school trip on Monday morning, so there's no way I could ever do it. I think, like, it gets in my head, I was like, well, I'll find out if I go 5-0, I'll find out if me playing extra rounds would score me more points.
Yeah.
Because then that's good for the team, right? Because we're aiming for this top 10. And, get to play at least one more game into a top-end opposition would be a great learning experience. But no, I mean, even if I had done something hilarious, like won my next 2 games and being invited or available into the Monday, I would not been able to go. No.
The irony being, both you and Porter would have had to have dropped, so it didn't fucking matter who won.
Well, fair enough. Fair play to Porter.
Yeah, the teacher's nothing game, right?
Yeah, his school had actually given him the Monday off, but he was saying his daughter had exams this week and he's like quite a warrior about exams, so he wanted to be there for her. So he was like, "No, I'm not going to go play." Yeah.
That is sweet.
Should have given me the win. Bastard.
Yeah, he should have done, shouldn't he? Outrageous.
When you hit a point where you've got nothing left to prove,
He's certainly,
he's
certainly firmly hit that point. There is an interesting thing with this, and this is something I think players, as you get steadily better and better, like the stages of an event you expect to be at, that's an incremental thing, right? That changes over time. Like the number of wins you expect to have, the kind of places you expect to knock around. This takes time, right? And I think that really top place, that I'm literally going to win all my games. Arriving at a place where you consistently think that's what you're going to do or believe that's what you have a good chance of doing, I think that takes a long time, or a lot of practice in a very short time, I guess would be the other way. But that's something that in this team we're not there yet. And we know we're not there yet. We're working at getting there. But I like to think actually we'd never let ourselves get entitled to thinking we're going to win 5 games and clear all the way out. I don't think that's really.
Some of us play Death Guard, so
exactly. Some of us play Death Guard, so they are entitled to win 5 games and go all the way out because Death Guard are the fucking best army in this game, and you can yeet a little banner man out from a rhino and do an aura of contagion range and chuck multiple free grenades. Jamie didn't do any of those things. He rushed he ran a bunch of vehicles at me.
But he could have done.
But he could have
the
done.
important
He
thing.
absolutely could have done.
Here's the thing that you're all forgetting is I'm a petty motherfucker, and I'm going to be clipping this. And there'll be times, 6 months down the line, I'll be like, "Oh, Tom, do you remember the win rate?" And I'll just send you a little video.
Yeah.
Of you, Death Guard are really good.
I mean, it doesn't look good now, does it? It already looks like they're on. Like, if they've just had the shot in the arm and they're posting 46, that's not a great start.
There's so much.
Says Tom Lohman Death Guard for his next GT. I will take Death Guard to a GT. It will not be my next one, but I will 100% take Death Guard to a GT.
Teams
within the next few months. I'm not taking them to teams.
So you don't think they're good?
Let's not do that.
I think they're good. I'm happy to demonstrate that they are good at something in the future, but I need to work out when that is. So I will do that. That is my promise.
Whatever the event that matters the least is.
Yeah, exactly. Let me find something of minimal consequences, and I'll have a go. Who would win a fight between Ed and a badger? Death Guard would win. That's who would win.
You wouldn't be able to tell. It'd be like like a scene in a movie where you're holding a gun up and you're like, "Oh, the badger."
Ed, what do you reckon?
I like the question, but what he doesn't know is actually animals love me. Just fairly across the board.
Is that true? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, get on really well with them. Much better than people. Well. Yeah, see, that's the sort of thing a human person would say, wanker. What I can tell you, badgers really love cat food. So if you ever have any badger-related issues, feed them cat food, make a friend.
That is absolutely true. Matthew asks, how did you find the overall standard of players at LGT? Pre-event podcast noted many one-off players attend. That's certainly true. With so many resources to learn from, do you think player ability is on the increase? I think, that latter point, 100%. Your average player is way better now than when I started playing in 8th. In 8th, people put all their tanks on the line and hope they went first, or if they didn't, they hope they seized. That was literally tactics. That was how people played 40k. I went to enough events to watch that happen.
But there wasn't any terrain in 8th, to be fair.
No, there also wasn't any terrain in 8th.
That was the high-level play.
It's a totally different game now. I think the standard was pretty high, but it's such a roulette is the thing. It's like there's so many different types of players because it's not just the standard, it's what people are going for, right? It's the kind of the sort of list they're taking, the sort of experience they're expecting. I certainly felt like I played tough players the whole way through, really. I didn't really hit anyone who was sort of new or green in any sense.
I feel like my general, not the people I played, but just the general vibe is probably still fine, but lower than the last year of 9th, but that's understandable because you've had 2 years to learn it. So
there's a bit of that with the general edition reset, yeah. I mean, we're all doing that. I mean, Jack Tite I don't know if you're in here, Jack, but obviously Jack Tite is still learning how the missions work as well, and I think we were all, we all had moments. Whoa! I actually say that with massive amounts of sympathy. That was not intended to be a dig, and it's an example. If you've still got stuff to learn, then we all have stuff to learn, full stop. Bloodrend is asking about the strength of the schedule. We'll come back to that another day. Let's chat about that another day. That's a long conversation in itself. I reckon that'll do us for tonight. We can probably come back to some more. It's been a long day. We're hitting 11 o'clock now. I'm sorry, Jack. I really am. It's been lovely to chat LGT for you all. We'll be back again next time for something a little bit more relaxed and sort of upbeat and a little bit less game intensive. And we will see you all there. Thank you very much for watching. Good night. Bye-bye.